But now this isn't playing either. Is it paused? No, it's playing. Yes! Okay, let's go! Okay. I don't know why it's not playing the music, though. Like, I can only get one, and I'd rather have the microphone than the music, so that's fine. I don't care. Hello to at least Ghost Summers, and anybody else who might have stuck around through whatever the fuck was happening just now. I don't know why I could get music playing in the background, but not my microphone. But whatever. And I also had to like update my computer drivers this morning, the video drivers, which I've never had to do. I mean, if I updated it before, it didn't register to me that that's what was happening. So I guess I'm just having, technology issues because Josephina said, "You are not going to make fun of me today." But she forgot it's Pride Month. So yes, we will. We fucking will. So totally just lost my train of thought. It's Pride Month. I get to be fucking dumbed right now. Every time I have a brain fart, a straight person is required to cash at me $1. So yay, thank you, Go Summers. So if there's any cishets in the chat right now, I just had a brain fart. Please send me $1. Thank you. I don't write the laws. That's just how it is. In fact, no. Cishets, you need to bill Josephina for me because it's Pride Month. That's what needs to happen. So I'm going to bill her. Every time I lose my train of thought, she gets an invoice. Anyway, happy Monday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I did one of those things. I don't know if anyone else does this, but sometimes when my life is falling apart emotionally, I'll just rearrange the furniture in my room / apartment because new home, new me, right? Like, why change me when I can change my dresser? So yeah, so that's what I did this weekend. Hopefully you guys had a similarly mentally healthful weekend. When we left off, we were having a totally unrelated conversation about the like metaphysical realities of the universe, which is a more interesting discussion than really anything Josephina had to say. So if you guys ever want to pause the stream and just move on to having some other cool conversations, do it. I'll totally go on a tangent with you. But when we left off in the book, Harry, for some reason, had released a python into the zoo. And the python or was it a python? Was it a boa? What the fuck was it? Let me check. Boa constrictor, my bad. Whatever. Boa. Yeah, thank you, Ghost Summers. Yeah, into the zoo, and that snake very unrealistically, in my opinion, very optimistically. Yeah, sorry, all snakes look the same to me. There's just big ones and small ones. No, that's not true. I love snakes, but anyway, not that it matters, but we're having fun conversations anyway. So I don't think I ever told you, Ghost Summers, but so when I was a kid, we moved to Florida for a little while, and when we first moved into our house, this was before Florida was it's still not that built up, right? Like as a state, but the area I moved into is really built up now, but it wasn't that built up at the time that we moved. And our house was real close to the edge of the Everglades, comparatively speaking. If anyone who's not from Florida wants to look on a map, it was that area, in the south part. But anyway, so people were at the time buying anacondas and shit for pets. And then, snakes get big if they live. And I guess some people don't know that. I don't know what people, I mean, I guess there are snakes that stay small, but not like pythons or boas or whatever. So when we moved into our house, and yeah, people are fucking dumb. So when we moved into our house, we were warned that because there was a big like open lot and a canal behind our house. There's a canal behind like everyone's house in Florida. There's so many fucking canals. If you've never been there, you don't understand. Like South Florida was like dredged to make housing, and so you just have all these, like, it's like fucking Venice in there. Anyway, so there's a lot of snakes, and we were warned like, hey, by the way, there's a lot of snakes. And they weren't fucking kidding, because we moved in our boxes and stuff. We opened, there was like a glass sliding back door. It was very Florida. And when we opened the door, like a fucking baby anaconda fell out of the door, and it had been like mummified in there. Like, it was the weird, like, that was my introduction. Like, welcome to Florida, kid. Here's a fucking dead snake in your new home. So yeah, no, that really happened. Like, so that kind of colored my whole perception of Florida going forward. I was 5 years old. So so yeah, right, like that's how it's gonna be. This is what Florida is: dead snakes in your new house. And I mean, it was an accurate prediction. Like, the following summer, my mom had to kill a water moccasin that was trying to come through my brother's bedroom window. There's just a lot of stuff in Florida. Anyway, then when I was 10, they paved that whole, they cut down that whole wild area next to my house, and they turned it into a soccer park. So, well, you Ghost Summers, didn't you always live in like a suburb though? Like, we were for a time, like, we were living like at the very west end of the county. Like, I don't think I've ever shown you the house my parents bought back then, because by the time I knew you, my mom had already sold that house, so I had really no reason to be creeping around there. But it was like west of well, I don't live there anymore, so it doesn't matter. Well, no, but it could be a past address. What's a landmark I could give that was? We lived just east of Hiatus. Let me put it that way. Just east of the Sawgrass Mall as well. I was there all the time as a kid. And like when we moved, it was while it was still like alligator shaped. The Oasis was not there yet. I actually had some friends that I went to church with that lived west of the Sawgrass Mall, for reference. So, yeah. It's less next to the Everglades now because they've built up a whole bunch of stuff over there. But when we moved, really the only thing that was over there was that mall. So, I'm too close to the mic. I can hear all of my breaths. Let me move this back. Anyway. Yeah, that sounds better. So, yeah. So, I mean, if the... Yeah, it's that general area near, like, and we were around, we were near Sunrise, the road, Boulevard. I guess I'm doxing myself on this stream, but, yeah, we were near Sunrise. I could walk to Nob Hill. It does. It flooded all the time. There was a tropical storm the year I was in 3rd grade, and my mom had to pick us up from school, and I was waist deep in water to go home. It was the worst. I didn't like... See, people ask me, like, oh my God, why would you move away from Florida? It's like a beautiful... Like, people up here, like snowbirds, are like, why would you move here? Why did you move back to New York City? Like, bitch, I'm not wading through water moccasin infested waters to get home from picking up my kid from school. Hello? Like, excuse me? And there were gators the whole time back there. Like, there were gators in the canal behind our house. And those Jesus lizards, there were so many fucking Jesus lizards. All the spiders, so many. I hate those little crab spiders with the spikes on their back. Those gave me nightmares from the first day I moved to Florida. So, yeah, the lizards are cute. I don't mind the lizards. I'm just saying there's a lot of animals just around. And, like, it's not like there's no animals here. Like, I have some ravens outside of my apartment that I'm honestly, I'm starting to try and make them my friends. Like, I'm trying to start to, like, feed them regularly and, like, have them be my, Oh god, yeah, the spider's webs. Yes, I'm trying so hard to befriend these ravens. I really, really want that. I want a murder of ravens. Like that would just peak vibes for me. I'm doing it. You know, and like last night, I heard a fucking dinosaur outside my apartment. Like the noises were unreal. Remind me later, Ghost Summers, and I will try my best to send you the video. But it's like a shitty video, so I don't know if it's worth it. But there were just raccoons chilling on the roof next door to me, yelling into my apartment. And I didn't know they made this horrible sound. They really sounded the worst. They sounded like a fucking velociraptor. But yeah, there's just two raccoons duking it out on top of my next door neighbor's apartment building. So, I mean, if anyone ever tells you that, like, New York City doesn't have wildlife, yeah, they might be. They might have been rabid. I don't know. But, like, yeah, there's fucking animals here. Are you kidding me? There's fucking animals. And, like, I say the other day, like, it's not June. Back in, like, March, when it last snowed, they do make some weird sound. I mean, I don't know what raccoons sound like, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've lived around raccoons my whole life, and I do not know how they sound. I thought they sounded kind of like, angry cats, maybe, I want to say. It's not quite right, but more in that direction than, like, chittery bird type sounds is the kind of animal sounds they were making. It sounded, almost metallic. And I would say maybe that's because it was coming through the window, but my window was open. I mean, not when I saw these. Well, the raccoons were far, so I didn't shut it. But yeah, it was like a chirping sound, but it was angry chirps, which I'm not used to. The fat one on furthest from me won the fight. By the way, the skinnier one ended up losing. If you're curious about the success rate of that raccoon fight. But yeah, so yeah, and like in March, I want to say, yeah, it was like early March. We had a little light dusting of snow, and when I took my kid to school, there were deer footprints in the snow, just in an alley between two apartment buildings. And I mean, these are like 10-story apartment buildings, you know? And I was just real curious about that, because where the fuck do they live? Where do these fucking city deer live? Because I never see them ever, but those were definitely deer tracks. Like, my aunt lives further upstate, and I visited her in the winter multiple times. I've seen deer leave these exact prints behind them as they walk through her yard. They were right. Like, are they in the sewer? Like, where do the deer have an apartment? Like, god damn it. Is that why it's so hard to get an apartment? Because the deer have their own apartments, and like I'm competing with deer for apartments. Right? Maybe it was a satyr. Like, maybe I need to just calm down and stop being, like, so racist against my neighbors. But, like, no, that would have been goat prints, though. Goats have different feet. Do I know the difference between goat prints and deer prints, though? I guess the deer must be getting good rates, because, I mean, deer live in groups of, like, 10 people. So if they're getting 10 people in these $5,000 apartments, that's not bad on terms of rent. But anyway, yeah, so, like, there's definitely, like, a ton of animals here. I got a great photo of some vultures the other day, but, like, none of them want to murder me. You know what I'm saying? And Florida immediately let me know, no, there's murder around the corner waiting for you. Any moment from now, you, kindergarten-age child, you could die. And, yeah, so I left that. I said no. And I think that was better for me. Right? That's the excitement. That's the good part about living in Florida. Your adrenaline's always up. So anyway, this snake thinks it's going to make it somehow past Florida back to Brazil, a place it's never been. And we all know that's never going to happen. But the snake thinks so, and that's what matters. And the zoo director is very confused about the glass, but I guess the Dursleys gaslit this zookeeper. I also want a book about where the snake ended up. This snake got way too short of a, like, bit here. This snake is a more compelling character than anyone we've seen so far, which is the saddest thing in the world, because this snake is a throwaway character. Anyway, I guess the Dursleys probably gaslit the zoo director, because in the following paragraph, the zoo director himself made Aunt Petunia a cup of strong sweet tea while he apologized over and over again. They vandalized the zoo, and the zookeeper is like, have some tea. I'm really sorry that the zoo broke in this particular way. To be a middle-class white person, you know, just amazing. Piers and Dudley could only gibber. I mean, I think we're supposed to feel negatively about that, but like, they just watched glass disappear, and like, I don't, did the book say this? The book didn't say this. No. The book didn't say this, but the movie took it up a notch by putting those boys behind the glass and having the glass return. Like, Harry swapped them for the snake. Can you imagine? You go to the zoo, you're looking at snakes, and then suddenly, for reasons you don't understand, you're the snake. Like, I don't think, right, yeah, I'd be traumatized as fuck. I wouldn't have shit to say either. I'd be like, you know, a lot happened today, and I'm really just thinking about, like, what is humanity? What is life? I wouldn't have shit to say either. As far as Harry had seen, the snake hadn't done anything except snap playfully at their heels as it passed. This snake was described up, you know, further in the book, behind, whatever it's called, you know. I'm not an author, I don't know. But, previous pages, this had been described as a snake, big enough to crush a sedan, and it snapped playfully at their heels. Its mouth is probably as big as their fucking feet. Like, these boys saw death, right? This snake has more sense of humor than Josephina has had in her entire lifetime. This snake got 4 sentences and a better characterization. You know what? This is the first character. I'm losing my shit. This is the first character Josephina has written that I don't feel she hates. This is the first person she hasn't said, like, that the snake wasn't a fat asshole who was ugly and stupid. She hasn't said he was a skinny bitch who was constantly, like, outsmarting other people. She was just like, he was a cool snake. Props to that guy. Oh my god. She doesn't like people, but she loves snakes, I guess. Anyway, it snapped playfully at their heels. She fucking loves snakes, I guess. That's why she writes in, what's her name? Nagini or whatever at the end. That's why he has that pet snake. It's the only person in the books Rowling can relate to. That's her self-insert. Anyway. I'm just imagining Rowling, like, writing her scale soda. Let me take my inhaler. I'm gonna need this. Oh my god. Her scale soda. My god. Yeah, no, for real. Don't kill me live on... I mean, maybe that would get me a lot of views. Help me go viral. Tell everyone I died after I die. Anyway. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need this for today. So, yeah, no. J.K. Rowling really put herself in the books, and it was as a snake. Anyway, by the time they were all back in Uncle Vernon's car, Dudley was telling them about how it had nearly bitten off his leg, while Piers was swearing it had tried to squeeze him to death. But worst of all, for Harry at least, was Piers calming down enough to say, "Harry was talking to it, weren't you, Harry?" And I find this really interesting, because now Uncle Vernon's going to lose his shit, but people talk to animals all the time, and no one loses their shit going like, "You understood the snake?" Like, no, I was just speaking at it. Like... Did the Dursleys already know he could talk to snakes? Because I'd like a prequel book where Harry, the like 3-year-old boy, is just talking to a posse of snakes in the garden, and Aunt Petunia is just looking out the window going like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? You know? I want that book. We're not going to get that book because she's not going to do it, but it's not allowed. It's too weird of a thing for them, even if he was a normal boy. Right, like... But people talk to animals in the zoo. Look, I mean, I don't know who I'm talking to. I was about to say, have you ever heard someone talk to a cat? Ghost Summers, you talk to every fucking day, right? But it's normal to talk to an animal. Right, exactly, Ghost Summers. Like, it's normal to talk to an animal. To be like, you know, like as if I mean, to be fair, cats and dogs do appear to actually understand human language. But even if they didn't, like, you still try. Like, people talk to fucking pet rats and shit, and who knows if they can understand English or any language, you know? So, like, is it weird to be at the zoo looking at a snake and be like, poor motherfucker, trapped in jail, you're like 1,000,000 feet long and they got you in a 10-foot box, must suck to be you, and they're just going like, wow, what a psycho? Like, people do that. Honestly, he just really wants to, he's just waiting for the excuse. I mean, the way he, like, unhingedly got them that, like, shack in the sea when they were getting unsolicited mail, I don't think Vernon is mentally well. Like, I really don't think he he needs therapy that he's not getting. Okay, now that I'm done being chronically ill on stream. Uncle Vernon waited until Piers was safely out of the house before starting on Harry. He was so angry he could hardly speak. He managed to say, "Go, cupboard, stay, no meals," before he collapsed in a chair, and Aunt Petunia had to run and get him a large brandy. Amazing fic where Petunia left him after getting custody of Harry and was an amazing aunt and mother figure. It was so good. That does sound good. If you find that link again, send it to me. That sounds interesting. But like, is he having a stroke? He's telling Harry to go in the cupboard with no meals, which again, like, hey, it's Child Protective Services. What the fuck? He's not eating because he spoke to a snake at the zoo? Hello? Like, but aside, if he can just say, like, he can't, he's that mad. I'm having a stroke just thinking about how nonsensical that was. Harry lay in his dark cupboard much later, wishing he had a watch. Well, Dudley has a watch now. He didn't know what time it was, and he couldn't be sure the Dursleys were asleep yet. Until they were, he couldn't risk sneaking to the kitchen for some food. I mean, do they sound asleep? Listen, so, real talk about my childhood. I also had to wait for my family to fall asleep and sneak out to the kitchen to get food sometimes, because that's what it was like in the day. It doesn't matter what hour it is. You can tell when the house is asleep. They're not awake. They're not moving or talking. The lights are off. A lot of people snore. You know, there's clues. And have they all walked above his bed to their beds yet? He lives under the stairs. You can tell, listen, if you're in the basement, you can tell if someone's using the stairs. If you live in the closet under the stairs, I think you can tell if they went upstairs. Like, how does he not? Right, he definitely snores. There's no way he doesn't. Like, the way he's been characterized, not only does this man snore, but Rowling would say something like, when he snored, he sounded exactly like 60 feral hogs. Like, you know, like, you better get a gun. Like, there's no way he doesn't snore. So, like, like, it's gotta be. How does Harry not know? This definitely sounds like someone wanted to write abuse real bad, but doesn't have any experience of it. And, like, why doesn't she say she's had, like, that experience? Anyway, Harry wants food. He'd lived with the Dursleys for almost 10 years. 10 miserable years. As long as he could remember. I mean, honestly, if you're 10, you don't think of, I've lived here for 10 years. You think, that's my whole life. Or I guess 11 almost, whatever. But anyway, ever since he'd been a baby and his parents had died in that car crash. He couldn't remember being in a car when his parents had died. Well, you were a baby. Do you remember anything? Like, Sometimes, when he strained his memory during long hours in his cupboard, he came up with a strange vision. A blinding flash of green light and a burning pain on his forehead. Right, he was literally one. Like, I have weird, I think everyone does, but I have weird infant memories from around the time I was one. Like, I remember being carried by someone into what I know was my mother's bedroom in the apartment we had in Queens. And based on like the height I was and stuff, like I was definitely being held on like somebody's hip or something, you know what I mean? And like I have this one memory of being in my grandmother's bathroom, and I must have been about 18 months old to like maybe 2 years old based on when my grandmother says this happened. And like, does anyone remember, I don't know if this was universal, but at least in New York City in that time period, they had those like door stops on walls that were like a spring with a rubber cap. And oh boy, did those make a great noise if you like played with them. They would spring real nicely. And my grandmother really, not even my grandmother, my nanny, they're two different people. But she that's who raised me, by the way, for like the first 5 years of my life while my parents were working. Anyway, so yeah, she was about to lose her fucking mind. Or I remember standing on my grandmother. I'm getting them confused because I normally correct myself because no one knows what a fucking nanny is, and I'm done. I'm living my best Italian life. But anyway, so yeah, and I would like stand on the back of my grandmother's couches and scream sometimes for my grandfather Norman. Everyone else called him Norman, and I didn't know why I couldn't call him Norman, so I called him Norman. So people have those memories, right? But the way she's like, he can't even remember having been in a car. Why would he remember being in a car? All those weird memories I have are notable specifically because of how fucking weird that is. It's not like remembering when I was 21 and getting into a car accident. And even if I was 21, like, you often don't remember getting into a car accident because you hit your head. And he has a certifiable head wound. He's got a big-ass scar there. So I just think it's funny that she's like, he can't even remember being in a car. That's evidence he wasn't. Like, no. It's evidence he had a traumatic brain injury. Anyway, so he remembers a green light. This, he supposed, was the crash, though he couldn't imagine where all the green light came from. Buddy, you ever been at a traffic light before? There's a green light up there. It's right up there. It's right there. There's at least one at every lighted intersection. So, any other questions, Harry? God, he's dumb. Where the fuck could the green light have been come? Because someone was going. It was the go light. He couldn't remember his parents at all, due to having been a baby. His aunt and uncle never spoke about them, and of course he was forbidden to ask questions. There were no photographs of them in the house. This is being framed negatively, of course, but, like, not enough. Like, that's violence. Like, I used to, in my capacity as a teacher, I used to take care of these two children who, right, at 1 month, he should have down pat. He's got this. Did you know, this is not common knowledge, you don't have good distance vision until about 3 months as a baby. Before that, you can only see about 6 to 12 inches in front of you. So yeah, at 1 month, he definitely should have had their faces memorized, because, I mean, what's his excuse, right? My audio just cut out. What the fuck? Hello? Did the battery die? Hello? Ugh. Okay, and now it's back. So, thank you for that message, because as soon as you said that, the stream restarted. I was just wiggling the screen to see if it reacted, and it didn't. So, anyway, good times on twitch.tv. Excuse me. But yeah, what's his excuse? He could see 6 to 12 inches in front of him, and that's obviously where people keep their faces, so. But anyway, so I used to take care of these kids in my capacity as a teacher, who had been adopted fairly young. The younger one had been adopted at 2, and the older at 4. And the parents changed their names, like the adoptive ones. Like, there's this kids channel called Dave and Ava, and they changed their kids' names to Dave and Ava, which bothered the fuck out of me. So, but aside from changing it to something so fucking weird, like, their names weren't anything like Dave or Ava. Like, I'm not gonna dox these kids, but I was so pissed. Cause, like, I called them both by their birth names. Like, fuck their parents for doing that to them. Yeah, like, even, look, I've adopted pets from the shelter before, and I didn't change their fucking names because, like, that would be weird, in my opinion. They adopted 2 whole human beings and said, you're different ones now. And, like, it was, they called, the 4-year-old got confused for a good 8 months because we were first introduced to him as Dave. And we'd be like, hey, Dave, hey, Dave. And he would not respond. And we'd be like, I'm talking to you, Dave. And he, like, they didn't explain to him that they were changing his name because he'd be like, but my name's not Dave. My name is birth name. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I spoke to him like the first week to his mother to be like, hey, why is Dave telling me his name is actually birth name? And she was like, oh, that's what his birth mother named him, but we changed it on his birth certificate. That's not his name anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I never called him Dave again unless his mother was in the room. Because that's so fucking weird. That's the weirdest thing. Like, apparently his adoptive father's name was Dave, and the mother really liked the name Ava, and that's why they changed it. But, like, hello? You should have adopted children already named Dave and Ava then. I don't know what to tell you. They were, like, super Christian, too. I don't know how related that is, but yeah. And, like, and I always called the younger sister. She ended up being in my class, too. I didn't call her Ava. Are you kidding me? Why would you? But she didn't remember for the most part. The only one who called her birth name was her brother. And because of his parents' pressure, he had also started calling her Ava. Even though, like, he remembered her name, you know? And he would get himself confused and be like, wait, what are our names? And, like, what a fucking thing to do to a child. So anyway, if you adopt a child, heads up to my 2 viewers. If you adopt a child, don't erase the fact that they were adopted. Like, that's a violence. I'm sorry. Not having any photos of Harry's parents in the house is violence on par with telling them, no, your name is Dave now. Like, that's some fucking just, it's fucking weird is what it is. When he had been younger, Harry had dreamed and dreamed of some unknown, right? If they had renamed Harry. Your name's not Harry Potter anymore, son. Your name, since we choose weird names, your name's like Bromley or something. Because they already chose the name Dudley. Dave Dursley. For some reason, Dave Dursley sounds so dumb. Dave Dursley. Thank God I already took my inhaler. Anyway, yeah, like Dave Dursley. I can't imagine Harry did go by Dursley, right? Like even Harry Dursley sounds stupid. Dave Dursley and the Sorcerer's Stone. Oh my God. Stop, Ghost Summers, before I die. It's too funny. But like, no, like Dave Dursley. Imagine the rivalry between Dave Dursley and Draco Malfoy. Just doesn't have that ring to it. Imagine they did rename him Dave Dursley, right? Imagine they did, and then Hagrid shows up and they're like, Harry, I've got a letter for you. And Harry's like, who? My name's Dave. Like, no, you don't understand. You actually, your parents didn't name you Dave at all. Huh. Imagine. Like, you're a wizard, Dave. Imagine being, you're a wizard, Dave. Imagine being the the Kim Kardashian of the wizarding world, and he's just like, what? No, I'm Dave. Like, I can't. That's, how come we're better at writing, Dave? Did you put your name in the goblet of fire? I gotta stop. This was already a bad day for me, asthma-wise, and it's getting worse. But we're gonna Dave Dursley, the boy who lived, come to die. You remembered all the best quotes. I forgot 90% of what you're saying right now, and I'm so glad. Thank you for giving this stream life. I mean, now that you're saying it, I remember all of these, and it's so much funnier imagining. And I especially love imagining. I can't remember his name. The guy who plays Harry, just looking like so confused as they're like, Dave. Wait, am I Harry or Dave today? What's happening? I can't remember. Like, I grew up as Dave, but everyone here calls me Harry and thinks I'm famous. Which, again, going back to chapter 1 or whatever, we are 24 pages into a 200-page book. This is why I'm doing this on Monday and Friday, by the way, because I don't want to be 70 still reviewing this book. But yeah, back in chapter 1, what is this man's name? Dumbledore was like, oh, you don't want him to grow up knowing he's famous. Like, why? He's going to be so confused when he gets to school. Very confused. And they for sure would not... they would not call him Dave. They would not call him anything other than Harry. Imagine him being on the train and being like, hi, my name's Dave. And Ron being like, no, you're Harry Potter. I can see your fucking scar. They told me you'd be here. And Harry's just like, what? Hello? No. I'm Dave. I'm Dave Dursley, the abused boy from Privet Drive. Right, Ron's like, don't fucking lie to me. I don't know why I gave Harry a deeper voice there right then. But anyway, yeah, like everyone would just assume he was lying all the time. Like the biggest gaslighting they could have done would be to name him Dave Dursley. That's, you know what? And that's another thing too. Like, why would Dumbledore give the Dursleys his real name? I mean, I guess they knew it anyway. The instant Ron goes, hey, aren't you Harry Potter? Like, his voice just drops and he immediately gets like a full beard. And no, I'm Dave, as you can tell from my beard. I didn't do the voice drop that good this time because I'm dying. But anyway, renaming him's absolutely 100. Yeah, right. Like, they would have done that, and they wouldn't have given him a nice name like Dave. They would have definitely named him something really stupid. They named their son Dudley. They thought Dudley was a good idea. Then again, if they think Dudley's a good idea, maybe they would have been like, Steven, that'll show him. He'll feel so probably right. Like. But, like, maybe they would have been like, Steven, yeah, now he'll feel stupid. Like, I don't know. I just feel like, now that I'm thinking about it, I agree with you. Renaming him, they definitely would have. First of all, they wouldn't have given him the last name Potter, because we've already established that the Dursleys are very big on having money. And Potter is UK slang for a poor person. So they would have been like, no, you're not. And second of all, they were, like, just making fun of the name Harry last chapter. They definitely wouldn't have kept... Well, maybe they would have because they hate him. I don't know. One of Theodore Roosevelt's sons was called Kermit? What? Like, his first legal name? Like, that was what people were supposed to call him all the time? I mean, like, I guess for the frog to be... It was his birth name. God damn it. Like, I guess because they named the frog that, it used to be a real name, but, like... Theodore Roosevelt had a Muppet son? It was his mother's maiden name? Who does this? Who gives their son their mother's maiden name? What? That's the weirdest... Listen, people be making choices. You know, this is just like that that girl I saw, I don't know if this was in your chat or if this was in another chat I was in, but if I haven't sent this to you, remind me and I'll send it to you later. There's this family that's naming their kid Rifle, and hold on, I'm putting it in the chat because I don't even remember how this was spelled. Hold on. It's like right, hold on, I'm testing it out in the chat. How did they there's a U in here somewhere. Is it here? Maybe there's not a U. I think it was like this. REIFYL Rifle. And like, they're like so happy to welcome this baby into our family. And I'm like, who the fuck? What? Right? Isn't that awful? And especially like they made this announcement like a week, like it was like concurrent with Uvalde or Uvalde, however you say it. Like, yeah, they announced it like the same week. And it's like, maybe you should look into renaming your daughter because I don't think that's an appropriate name anymore. But yeah, I'm not surprised his son killed himself in World War II. A, World War II was terrible. B, his name was Kermit, so he had no reason to live. He had no will to live. There's no reason to live. Your name's Kermit, and it's World War II. You're a wizard, Kermit. You know what, though? If Kermit the Frog probably would have been like, okay, yeah, let's go. When are they doing the Muppet remake of Harry Potter? That's how you know it's over. I'm dying. And I just took my steroids too. I took every steroid I own. That sounds like I'm doing it illicitly. I was prescribed them. I don't know why I'm still coughing. Anyway. When he had been younger, Harry had dreamed and dreamed of some unknown relation coming to take him away, but it had never happened. Real talk, same, Harry. I had that dream also, and it never happened to me either, so... Sometimes you just get older and realize it's not happening. Right? Yeah, like, that's the abused kid dream. Like, you know, what was that? Was it Princess Diaries or whatever? That was a good fantasy for me. Like, yeah, maybe there's some small country I've never heard of and I'll get to go be a princess. Nope, you just get older and you run away when you're old enough. Which Harry basically did, except... Whatever, we're gonna get into it when that happens. The Dursleys were his only family. I actually have a question about that. So, like, James didn't have any brothers or cousins or grandparents or aunts or uncles, neighbors? No? Okay. Yet some... Right? Yeah, like he was the last of his... I guess they all could have died in the war. It happens, but... I don't know. Yet he sometimes thought, or maybe hoped, that strangers in the street seemed to know him. But since his family was magical, it would have been more dangerous to put Harry with them. But, like, why? Like, that's just said in chapter 1, and we're just supposed to, like, agree. But why? In what way? Like, how would it have been more dangerous? They wanted him to be surrounded by muggles. How is that safer? How is that safe? I mean, it was safer in that Harry at least learned how to do math, right? Because I don't think wizards can do math. They don't go to primary school. But, like, you know, at least he can add. But unlike Dudley, we learned last chapter, or same chapter last time, whatever. Like, so he can add and stuff now, which is great. And, like, how is living with muggles safer? Like, Harry has the power of math. But, like, how... It's like, okay, imagine, right, that for some reason the Kardashians need to go into hiding. Are you just going to put them in the middle of Smallsville and hope for the best? That's not safer. It's not. Especially since, like, apparently the neighborhood Harry was in already had wizards and shit in it anyway. Mrs. Fig is a witch, so how is this safer? It's not safer. It's just stupid. In my opinion, if anyone tells me how it's safer, I'll listen, but was she a squib? I didn't remember that part. I thought she was a witch, but either way, that's not a muggle. My God, I'm sorry I'm so gross today. I thought she just didn't use her powers because she lived in a muggle neighborhood. I could have totally missed that part and she might have been a squib. But how is her being a squib, like, safer for Harry in any way? If anything, it's more dangerous because then if someone does show up in the neighborhood to fuck shit up, who's gonna... I mean, I guess well, no, I was gonna say muggles have the power of gun, but not in the UK they don't, so... Who's gonna save him from anything? Like, there's no, it's not safer. It's like saying the president, hold on, this goes back to that Dumbledore or the Dursleys should have changed his name. Right, it's the most obvious thing. At least, I mean, or like, they should have changed his scar to be less obvious or something, since everyone knew about that, apparently. And how did everyone know about that, by the way? Like, who told about that Dumbledore? Only like 5 people saw him that day. So how did anyone know? Right? Wizards don't know how to search school records. They just know how to, I guess, creep around neighborhoods pretending to be animals or whatever. They sure can read maps as a cat, though. That's apparent based on chapter 1. But I just don't see how this was actually protective for him. Like, they didn't change his name. They didn't change his appearance. Right? Hey, listen about this scar baby Harry got. Like, who snitched? Let's start there. That person needs to be eliminated from the Harry Potter support team immediately. That person's gotta go. They don't know how to keep a secret. It was probably Hagrid, let's be real. But, like, even if it was, like... That's still Dumbledore making a stupid choice. Now I'm too far from the microphone. Hello? Is there any winning? Is this better? Anyway, like, Dumbledore doesn't know how to fucking... Also, why is protecting an infant who never went to his school his responsibility? Like, wouldn't there have been, like... What were they called? The Aurors or whatever? Okay, thank you for letting me know I wasn't too close. I felt like my breath was in, like, every sentence. But, like, wouldn't the police have, like, been in charge of whatever the wizard police were? Been in charge of securing this baby? Why did the headmaster of a school the baby has never attended get put in charge of that? That's what I never understood. He was very close with them. Right, yeah, but, like... Like, here's the thing, okay? As a preschool teacher, I ended up getting close to the family of one of my students, right? And I happen to know her parents were, like, going through a divorce. And, like, I don't mean, like, just that I was close with her. Like, her mom gave me her number. I babysat her over the weekend more than once. Like, she slept in my home and stuff like that. When her parents started to divorce, I had no say in where she went custody-wise. You know what I mean? And that kid actually went to my school. I actually taught her. So, how did Dumbledore get... Mostly because, yeah, she didn't come up with the idea until another book. She's just not a good world builder, I agree. She thought later, oh yeah, don't, like, the government get involved in this? Whatever. Like, I think she didn't imagine the wizarding world being as big as it was until she got big, like, later into the books. And that's when she was like, shit, I guess we need a government. Like, I think she kind of imagined Dumbledore being the, like, Gandalf of this story. Until later she realized, shit, this isn't that kind of story. Like, and that's, you know, fine. If you're just going, like, but people really make it seem like she had this shit planned from the start. She didn't. This is all seat of her pants. She's just good at making you think she's smart. So let's go on. Very strange strangers they were, too. That might be why they're called strangers, because they are strange. A tiny man in a velvet top hat bowed to him once while out shopping with Aunt Petunia and Dudley. So I'd like to know what that man was buying. Like, let's say they're at an Aldi's, right? Right, she's good at making 12, but like other adults think she's smart too, because they just don't think about it. They read it once as a 12-year-old and went, yeah, that was a good book. Like, there's a lot of stuff you fill the gaps in as an adult. You just assume she thought of and she didn't. Well, that too, yeah, they are dumb also. But I want to know, so this setup, Harry, Petunia, and Dudley were at an Aldi's, and a man in a velvet top hat bowed to Harry. Now, one, I don't know why anyone didn't just assume he was having a mental health issue, and why they assume that has anything to do with Harry. But two, we know why Petunia was there with her 2 kids. What was this man doing at the Aldi? What was a wizard doing at the Aldi? It's established they have their own grocery establishments. So why was he there? Like, what was he doing there? Like, she put this in there so we'd know Harry was famous, but why was he there? Like, that would be like me getting all excited that I saw a celebrity at like a red carpet event. Why was I at a red carpet event? I don't belong there. Oh, for sure, Petunia. Petunia makes sense. I understand why Petunia was upset. But why didn't she just tell Harry, that man's crazy? Some people have mental illness. You know what I mean? It's the perfect excuse for everything weird. Oh yeah, he has schizophrenia. Don't worry about it. You know? Right. I guess she was also dumb. I want to know this too. Okay, so hold on. After asking Harry furiously if he knew the man, how old was he when this happened? Is she asking a kindergartner if he knows that man? Is she asking like a toddler? Is he 9? Almost any age up to this point is a ridiculous time to ask a child at an Aldi if they know a stranger who bowed to him. Like, it just doesn't... Where would he have met him? A wild-looking old woman dressed in all green had waved merrily at him on a bus. I'm that woman a lot. I'm that person a lot. Where I'll be on a bus, and I don't look good, you know? I don't look together. And kids say hi to me, and I go, hey, baby, how you doing? And we have a whole ass conversation, and their parents go, don't look at her. She's homeless. Like, there's this child that I speak to regularly to and from school, walking my kid to school, who happens to be making the route at the same time. She's about 3, and she always goes, hi, hi, and I always reply and ask how her day's going, and her mom always yanks her arm. So, I mean, I'm just saying, Petunia thinking that this woman was a witch, she was probably right, but it also could have just been me. Sorry, Petunia, that was me. A bald man in I noticed that magic color is apparently purple and green. I have definitely spoken to some abused wizard children. It's gotta be. But, every time Rowling writes a wizard, they're wearing, like, purple and green, unless they're, Dumbledore, who wears blue. Also, so were the green ones Slytherins, or what house wears purple when they leave school? Because Rowena Josephina, whatever, she believes in color coding, so who's the purple people? Or did those people, were they too poor to go to school? Because, I mean, it's established that Ron can only go to school because there's, like, a scholarship. So maybe people who wear purple just had to try their best at home. That's the high school dropout color, maybe. There we go. We figured it out. That's why they all aren't rich and hanging out in wizard society. They're living on the fringes of Muggle society. They had to get a real job. Let's see. So anyway, a bald man in a very long purple coat had actually shaken his hand in the street the other day and then walked off without a word. I think we're supposed to think the long purple coat is like eccentric, but like, was it cold out? Maybe he was just wearing seasonally appropriate clothing. Like why are we hating on this man for having appropriate outfits? Like, it's fabulous, but maybe he's just gay. You don't know. The weirdest thing about all these people was the way they seemed to vanish the second Harry tried to get a closer look. Right? Like, how did they all know what he looks like? How did they all know where he lived? Someone close to Dumbledore, if not Dumbledore his fucking self, was selling passes to come say hello to Harry Potter. That's the only explanation. Like, I walk around New York City pretty frequently, and I've never just, like, walked into a celebrity by accident before, because I don't know where they're gonna be. But these people knew where Harry was gonna be, down to, like, what aisle of the fucking Aldi they were gonna be in. And that's suspicious. Rowling didn't realize that was suspicious? Because that's suspicious. Who knew he was buying carrots that day? Who knew? We gotta find out who that was. At school, Harry had no one. Everybody knew that Dudley's gang hated that odd Harry Potter in his baggy old clothes and broken glasses, and nobody liked to disagree with Dudley's gang. Okay, have fun with whatever you're doing, Ghost Summer. See you later if you come back, and if not, thanks for hanging out. Okay, wait, hold on. Why is this page just wasted? Why? Oh, because that was the end of chapter 2? Chapter 2 ends with Harry Potter was weird and everyone agreed. The end. Okay, so let's do a retrospective on chapter 2. A lot happened. We established that the Dursleys are abusive and shitty. But we all knew that. And we've also established that Harry can do accidental magic, but we already kind of knew that. And we've also established that sometimes Josephina doesn't know how to end a chapter, as given by starting to reminisce about people who accosted him in the streets, and then immediately being like, but anyway, everyone agreed Harry was weird. The end. That's what we've learned. Chapter 3, Letters from No One. I feel like there's a joke there, but I don't have it in me right now, so. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holidays had started, and Dudley had already broken his new video camera, crashed his remote control airplane, and, first time out on his racing bike, knocked down old Mrs. Figg as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. So that's a lot. So, first of all, when we left off, Harry was being sent to his cupboard with no meals. So it's been, let's see, summer holidays had started. So I guess we can assume that Dudley's birthday is in May, perhaps, if the summer holidays had started. So it's like late June, mid to late June, probably. And in that approximately 1 month, also, so this boy didn't have meals for a month, or was he just eating at school, or, like, we're supposed to feel bad, but I don't know how bad I'm supposed to feel, because that was so vague. Like, I feel bad for him for being punished for no reason. But also, what exactly was the punishment? Like, was he not allowed out of the cupboard, period? Like, what about when he had to pee? Was he peeing in bottles for a month? I don't... Was he allowed to shower? What was the punishment? Like, if you want me to hate the Dursleys, make it more apparent what his actual punishment was. If he was just grounded, that happens. Anyway, so the summer holidays had started. Dudley had broken his new video camera, which, I mean, they weigh like 40 pounds. I'm not surprised. He probably dropped it. He crashed his remote control airplane. I mean... That was inevitable, right? And first time out on his racing bike, knocked down old Mrs. Fig as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. That part is really the only thing that sounds kind of intentional and because he's shitty. The other two are just like, don't buy these things for an 11-year-old, duh. The bike, I don't know, did he know how to ride a bike before? Was it an accident? I think we're supposed to assume he did it on purpose, but I'm not positive. Harry was glad school was over, but there was no escaping Dudley's gang, who visited the house every single day. It's called friendship. Piers, Dennis, Malcolm, and Gordon were all big and stupid, but as Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the lot, he was the leader. Wow, I'm so glad that Josephina reminded us again that that Dudley was fat, and so were his friends. I'm so glad, because I had started to forget, and now I can remember. Now I remember. They're fat. The rest of them were all quite happy to join in Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. Now, I grew up with siblings, and even a vindictive sibling, which coincidentally my brother was. There's other stuff you do. It's not that fun, especially if the other person is like making it difficult. At some point, you're like, does anyone want to go swimming? Do you want to go ride that racing bike to the place we go do that at? Let's go get a hot dog. Like, for days. There's, people have moods. This is why Harry spent as much time as possible out of the house, wandering around and thinking about the end of the holidays, where he could see a tiny ray of hope. When September came, he would be going off to secondary school, and for the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. So, never mind. I'll not here, later. Dudley had been accepted at Uncle Vernon's old private school, Smeltings, which I'm letting that one go. Piers Polkiss was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, the local public school. Hell yeah. Harry Potter said queer rights. I would also like to go to Stonewall High. Dudley thought this was very funny. They stuff people's heads down the toilet at the first day at Stonewall, he told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? I don't believe him, because they live in a posh neighborhood. Then again, no, hold on. Posh neighborhoods are exactly where this happens. I do believe him. No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilet's never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. Then he ran before Dudley could work out what he'd said. And I think we're supposed to think this was an epic burn from Harry, the sassiest of children. That's how kids talk to each other. Hold on. I'm really looking it up right now. Was Josephina a single child? She keeps writing this they have, oh my god, I just literally just Googled Josephina K. Rowling. That's not her name. That's why I couldn't find her wiki. Anyway, but yeah, this is how siblings talk to each other. We really just drag each other for no reason. She writes this, she seems to think that we're gonna be wow, they're really hating on each other. That's a pretty decent working sibling relationship as far as I understand it. Hold on. Early life and family. There we go. Click on that. Is she her parents met on a train? That explains a lot. Came home, raised a baby. She had a sister who was 2 years younger. So how does she not... Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. How does she not know this is how children talk to each other? I don't know. Maybe posh ones don't. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure this is how kids talk to each other. Not all the time, right? You have moments where you're nice to each other. But how does she not know? How she really makes it seem like that was some real sassy shit from Harry right there. That's just what kids say worse. Harry, if Harry was as fat phobic as Rowling is, he would have been making fun of that constantly. That might be why they beat him up so much, honestly. Anyway, trying to find my spot again. There it is. One day in July, Aunt Petunia took Dudley to London to buy his smelting's uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Figg's. I guess the strangers accosting him in public is why she doesn't take him anywhere anymore, but he's also old enough that he could have just been left home. He's practically 11 at this point. Mrs. Figg wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she'd broken her leg tripping over one of her cats, which I feel like was brought up last chapter, but I'm not going to go check. And she didn't seem quite as fond of them as before. She let Harry watch television and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she'd had it for several years. Disgusting. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family in his brand new uniform. Smelting's boys wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hats called boaters. They also carried knobbly sticks used for hitting each other while the teachers weren't looking. This was supposed to be good training for later life. I know that she's trying to make this hideous on purpose, you know? She's doing this on purpose so we can hate Dudley in what is honestly probably a really proud moment for him. Like, he's probably kind of excited and stuff, and we're supposed to, like, hate him for that because he's got an ugly-ass uniform. Like, that's shitty of her, honestly, in my opinion. Like, let the boy have something he's happy about. Let him have his ugly-ass uniform. The real crime here is that the school has that ugly-ass uniform. A maroon tailcoat, orange knickerbockers. Why are they even wearing boater hats? Like, the vibe is all wrong. Like, I mean, that's got to be seasonal, right? Because there's no way in, like, December it's snowing and they're like, get your straw hats, boys. Also, there is absolutely no way, you cannot convince me that in the UK, they're allowed to carry around sticks for the express purpose of beating each other. Like, it might be an official part of the uniform still. Actually, never mind. Hold on. This is a private school. Never mind. They might be allowed to do this. The rich really just let themselves do anything. It's the dumbest. That might be... That actually... I believe that part. Good job, Josephina. As he looked at Dudley in his new knickerbockers, Uncle Vernon said gruffly that it was the proudest moment of his life. I think we're supposed to make fun of him for that, but, like, as a parent, like, yeah, you know, this is probably, a sweet moment for them. They're shitty people, so, like, I don't really care if they're having a sweet moment, but, like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, why am I supposed to hate that they love their son? Hello? Aunt Petunia burst into tears and said she couldn't believe it was her Ickle Diddykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. Again, as a mother, yeah, you have that moment. Might cry a little bit. You know how it is. Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He thought 2 of his ribs might have already cracked from trying not to laugh. Very normal sibling reaction. We're supposed to have opinions about this, and I just don't. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen the next morning when Harry went in for breakfast. It seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went to have a look. The tub was full of what looked like dirty rags swimming in gray water. "What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia. Her lips tightened as they always did if he dared to ask a question. "Your new school uniform," she said. Harry looked in the bowl again. "Oh," he said. "I didn't realize it had to be wet." Which, actually, that one's pretty good. That's a pretty good joke. "Don't be stupid," snapped Aunt Petunia. "I'm dyeing some of Dudley's old things gray for you. It'll look just like everyone else's when I'm finished." And, that's not gonna fly. Like, the schools always have really stupid, like, I have the same issue at my kid's school. I mean, it's an American public school, so all we had to do was be like, no. And then what are they going to do? She's has to go to school. They can't keep her out. But like, you can't just wear any shirt. Like, you know, they have a specific color from a specific brand she's supposed to be wearing and a specific shade of khaki. And I said no. No, I'm not buying that. It's like, you know, it's not a charter school. We didn't have to apply to get in. It's the one we're zoned for. What are you going to do? Zone me somewhere else? Good luck. Try. She's not detention. Are you kidding? Half the kids don't wear the uniform. I can't afford that shit. The ones that do clearly think they're better than everyone else. But, you know, anyway, the point is you can't just dye some shit gray. You can't. Also, I do quite a lot of dyeing as a hobby. I've done a significant amount of dyeing. If these are woolen-based clothes, the horrible smell is just vinegar. It's just vinegar. Literally, vinegar is the chemical you use to set wool-based dyes. But if you're getting a professional kit, it actually really doesn't smell like anything at all because they'll use citric acid instead, which is odorless. Citric acid is that little crystal on the outside of sour gummies that make it taste sour. You can buy that. It's just more expensive. But it's odorless, so your kitchen doesn't smell like vinegar. If it's a cotton-based clothing that she's dyeing, those don't really smell like anything. They don't really have a smell. You wouldn't do a hot process for that anyway. It would be a cold process. They do smell like something if you get the dye like right up next to your nose, but it's not like in the air. If it's a polyester or something that she's dyeing, that might have an odor. I don't really fuck around with viscose dyes because it's really hard to do in terms of like chemically it doesn't want to dye. And you really need a lot of heavy industrial chemicals that you probably shouldn't be using in your kitchen. Certainly not in a regular pot. It says a large metal tub in the sink, so it's not even hot actually. So yeah, there wouldn't be any odor coming from this. So I'm wondering if it's actually shoe polish or something. Shoe polish does smell bad. But this is another instance of Josephina, like she didn't even pick up one book from the library for 1 second to find out whether dyes have smell. They don't. Dye powders themselves don't have an odor. Mixed into solution, they don't have an odor. I've tried many different types of dye chemicals, and they don't smell. The one smell that my house has when I'm dyeing wools is vinegar, but like that's it. So I'm sorry that I went on a whole tangent for that one because it really didn't deserve it, but it bothered me as someone who has experience with this, so you guys get to hear it too. Yeah. Anyway, I also didn't realize his uniform had to be so wet. Oh, and then they also think, it's the other thing. So yeah, she's not going to get away with this. Why did she waste her time and money dyeing his uniform? Because he's going to have the specific uniform of the school. Like, Rowling's just trying way too hard to make her dumb. Or I think this is supposed to come off as her being mean. She won't even buy him new clothes, but they're not going to be allowed to do it. Like, they're going to come to the house. I've read from other teachers in the UK about how, like, they have scholarship programs and stuff to help you get the uniforms because you really do have to have the right uniform. Not universally, you know, there's a lot of places where they absolutely do not have that, and it's needed. And it's a thing that people argue about over there. I mean, obviously, I don't know about from experience. This is, again, just talking to people online in teacher forums. But, it's not going to fly. He's not going to be allowed to wear, like, old sweatpants as a uniform if old sweatpants is not in the uniform. Harry seriously doubted this, but thought it best not to argue. He sat down at the table and tried not to think about how he was going to look on his first day at Stonewall High, like he was wearing bits of old elephant skin, probably. Sure, whatever. I can't, I'm done with the fat phobia. Dudley and Uncle Vernon came in, both with wrinkled noses because of the smell from Harry's new uniform. You know, the one that wouldn't smell unless she was using shoe polish. which would be really stupid of her. But anyway, Uncle Vernon opened his newspaper as usual, and Dudley banged his smelting stick, which he carried everywhere, on the table. If I was his parents, that would be the first thing that went, I was going to say on top of the fridge, because that's somewhere that the kids that I would need to take stuff away from would go. Thinking about it, the kids that are old enough, I wouldn't even need to take it out of the thing, honestly, because I'm doing sorry to brag, I'm doing a pretty good job here, and I don't really have to take stuff away from my kids. That's something you do with little kids. But, yeah. Man, they're dumb. The Dursleys are dumb. As written. They heard the click of the mail slot and the flop of letters on the doormat. "Get the mail, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind his paper. "Make Harry get it." "Get the mail, Harry." "Make Dudley get it." "Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Harry dodged the smelting stick and went to get the mail. Why did Vernon go through that dance if he was ultimately just going to have Harry do it anyway? Like, he had to know Dudley wouldn't have gotten the mail. It was the stupidest. Harry, 3 things lay on the doormat. A postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, who was vacationing on the Isle of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it, his heart twanging like a giant elastic band. I think he should probably seek medical attention for that issue. I've felt a lot of emotions, and none of them felt like a rubber band in my chest. So he should definitely seek medical care. No one ever in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no other relatives. He didn't belong to the library, so he'd never even gotten rude notes asking for books back. Maybe it's different in the UK, but I've also never gotten a letter asking for a book back. You're just not allowed to borrow anything from the library after that. Yet here it was, a letter addressed so plainly it could not be no mistake. Mr. H. Potter, The Cupboard Under the Stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Winging, Surrey. Or should that be Whinging? Probably Little Whinging, Surrey. So that's another question too. Like, Dumbledore addressed this, I think. And it's to the cupboard under the stairs. And he was like, he's just okay with it. I'm just saying he fucking knew and did nothing. Why is he in charge of hundreds of children? The envelope was thick and heavy, made of a yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. I mean, this sounds real aesthetic. I'd like to receive a letter like this. Not in the sense of, because I want to go to Hogwarts, but just bring back the era when, like, our stationery was nice. Everything is so shitty now. There was no stamp. So how did it get to him? Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms. See, purple and green are the colors of magic, I'm told. The coat of arms was a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding a large letter H. Once upon a time, you had to imagine this seal, but I can't imagine anyone listening to this stream has not heard, has not seen this seal, so y'all know what it is. "Hurry up, boy," shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen, and boy, doesn't imagining Harry as a mixed child make that come off awkwardly. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. This is a bad joke, though, because if I have my recent history correct, isn't this around the time of the Troubles when there were letter bombs? So, like, I mean, probably not to Little Whinging or whatever, but, insensitive as fuck. Harry went back to the kitchen, still staring at his letter. How'd I lose my spot on this page? Here we go. He handed Uncle Vernon the bill and the postcard, sat down, and slowly began to open the yellow envelope. This is partially where we learn that Uncle Vernon is so inobservant. Everyone is so inobservant because he's opening a letter right in front of them and they don't even notice. So Way to be an observant Dursleys. What? Okay. Sorry. Anyway, Uncle Vernon ripped open the bill, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. Was he unaware he was going to be charged? I expect my bills, and they're about what I expect them to be. Hold on. Sorry, I just took some Advil. I have a headache for some reason. Uncle Vernon ripped open the bill, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. Marge is ill, he informed Aunt Petunia. Ate a funny whelk. Probably shouldn't have eaten that. I wouldn't eat whelk generally. Dad, said Dudley suddenly. Dad, Harry's got something. Mind your business, Dudley. Harry was on the point of unfolding his letter, which was written on heavy parchment. Hold on, there we go. Which was written on the same heavy parchment as the envelope, when it was jerked sharply out of his hands by Uncle Vernon. That's mine, said Harry, trying to snatch it back. Who'd be writing to you? Sneered Uncle Vernon, shaking the letter open with one hand and glancing on it. His face went from red to green faster than a set of traffic lights. Oh, now he's heard of traffic lights? And it didn't stop there. Within seconds, it was the grayish white of old porridge. And hold on, I'm changing the brightness of my screen because I can't. Sorry, the sun shifted in the room and it was just like glaring off my screen and I could not see. There we go. It was jerked sharply out of his hands. That's mine, said Harry. It didn't stop there. Grayish white old porridge. There we go. Petunia, he gasped. Dudley tried to grab the letter to read it, but Uncle Vernon held it high out of his reach. My boy's 11. At 11... he's about as tall as his father, I would imagine. Anyway, Aunt Petunia took it curiously and read the first line. For a moment, it looked as though she might faint. Do it, bitch. Oh, hold on. There you go. Now you can read along with me. She clutched at her throat and made a choking noise. Imagine if she died right there. Anyway. Vernon. Oh my goodness, Vernon! They stared at each other, seeming to have forgotten that Harry and Dudley were still in the room. Dudley wasn't used to being ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on the head with his smelting stick. Boy, you better watch it. He's gonna beat you. Actually, never mind, they're white. What am I... Anyway. I want to read that letter, he said loudly. I want to read it, said Harry furiously, as it's mine. Get out, both of you, croaked Uncle Vernon, stuffing the letter back inside its envelope. Harry didn't move. I want my letter, he shouted. Let me see it, demanded Dudley. Out, roared Uncle Vernon as he took both Harry and Dudley by the scruffs of their neck and threw them into the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen at the keyhole. Dudley won, so Harry, his glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on his stomach to listen at the crack between door and floor. As a glasses wearer from around, I assume, a similar age to Harry, the trick here, I don't know what she's talking about, dangling his glasses from one ear. You take them bitches off, because they'll be pressing into your nose all uncomfortably and stuff. You take them off, you got them out away from your head and your hands so that they don't get stepped on by your sibling that you're fighting over the keyhole with. Although under the crack of the door is a better audio area, generally speaking, unless sometimes some doors, it depends on the type of door it is and how it locks and whatever, sometimes right next to the handle, not the keyhole, but you know, the place where the lock deadbolt thing goes into the door jamb, that's also sometimes a really great audio window as well. But anyway, that's beside the point. I don't know what she's talking about with his glasses on one ear, which ear and why. Vernon, Petunia was saying in a quivering voice, look at the address. How could they possibly know where he sleeps? Did you keep it a secret? You don't think they're watching the house? Bitch, of course they're watching the house. I'm pretty confident the letter mentioned that they were watching the house. They've been watching the house. Watching, spying, might be following us, muttered Uncle Vernon wildly. Yeah, they did that. I mean, I understand it's alarming to realize you've been stalked for a long time when you thought you were safe. I've been through that, and it is an alarming situation. But weren't they alarmed by all the strangers in the street and stuff? Didn't they know? Anyway. But what should we do, Vernon? Should we write back? Tell them we don't want? Harry could see Uncle Vernon's shiny black shoes pacing up and down the kitchen. No, he said finally. No, we'll ignore it. If they don't get an answer, yes, that's best. We won't do anything. Which, I mean, does seem to be the Dursley way. You just avoid your problems and pretend they don't exist. And that worked out really, really great in terms of getting a nephew to take care of. So let's just pretend other problems don't exist. But I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Didn't we swear when we took him in we'd stamp out this dangerous nonsense? It sounds like they're discussing whether or not to get a cat. Like, I'm not having a cat in this house, Petunia. I'm allergic, you know? It's... Or, you know what? I don't think Rowling would have had the parallel here, but, this is very similar to the conversation my parents had after pressuring me. I mean, they basically just assumed I was gay, and then were like, don't lie to me, you're gay. And at the time that they first assumed I was gay, I did not myself have the knowledge that I was gay. I was unaware I was queer at that moment. But they sure knew, so I guess it was pretty obvious to everyone but me. But I still thought I was going to marry a man and stuff growing up. Turns out no. But this has that vibe. Shout out to all my LGBTQ plus peeps out there who've had their parents be like, we're not having one of those in my household. Meanwhile, one of those is in the household listening to you say how you're not going to be in the household. DM me for tips on running away. I got them. Anyway, maybe we should have like a, hashtag Pride Month fundraiser thing. I mean, I say fundraiser like anyone's going to donate anything for me. But, for resources to help kids run away from abusive households, because like there's just not that much awareness about these things. Also, I just heard one of my kids scream in a way that means I have to go find out what the fuck is happening, so I'll be right back. Childhood is a magical time. My child was recreating a sonic boom with their voice. So that's what's going on in my house today. So yeah. I mean, thank God it sounded like a broken leg or some shit. So thank God for that. But yeah, that's All right. So anyway, the Dursleys are about to ignore their problems. That evening, when he got back from work, Uncle Vernon did something he'd never done before. He visited Harry in his cupboard. So, like, was Harry punished in there, or was he just vibing, or who knows? "Where's my letter?" said Harry, the moment Uncle Vernon had squeezed through the door. "Who's writing to me?" "No one. It was addressed to you by mistake," said Uncle Vernon shortly. "I have burned it." Way to crush all that boy's hopes and dreams. "It was not a mistake," said Harry angrily. "It had my cupboard on it." "Silence!" yelled Uncle Vernon, and a couple spiders fell from the ceiling. Because Uncle Vernon actually can do a sonic boom with his voice, unlike my children. He took a few deep breaths and then forced his face into a smile, which looked quite painful. My guy knows how to smile. I don't know what to tell you, Rowena, but it's a human thing. Oh, is it not off? Sorry, it's not off. There we go. Yes, Harry, about this cupboard. Your aunt and I have been thinking you're really getting a bit big for it. We think it might be nice if you moved into Dudley's second bedroom." "Why?" said Harry. "Don't ask questions," snapped his uncle. "Take this stuff upstairs now." So, we get the second bedroom way earlier than I remembered getting. And that's okay. But it does make me wonder why Child Protective Services had looked the other way for so long, because apparently they're willing to cave just from getting, I was going to call it a strongly worded letter. This isn't a strongly worded letter. It's just a properly addressed letter. They get one properly addressed letter and they're already like, well, let's not get in legal trouble. So literally all it would have took is just like one home visit from the school. That's it. Like, there's some pussies, man. The Dursleys' house had 4 bedrooms. One for Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia, one for visitors, usually Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, one where Dudley slept, and one where Dudley kept all the toys and things that wouldn't fit in his first bedroom. It only took Harry one trip upstairs to move everything he owned from the cupboard to his room. You know, the fact that they bought a 4-bedroom house makes me wonder if the Dursleys had actually intended on having a second child, but because they had Harry, they didn't. And I wonder if that, like, caused any problems for them, like, in their relationship and stuff, like, you know, because now they have 2 kids, and if that's all they can afford, but they actually wanted, I don't know, maybe they wanted to try for a daughter or something, or just, you know, maybe Aunt Petunia just wanted to be pregnant a second time. Some people like being pregnant, you know what I mean? And now they can't. Like, I have an aunt that actually was pretty upset because she had her son when she really wasn't prepared. It was an unintended pregnancy, and she is one of those people. She hadn't been dating the father for very long, but she's one of those people that believe that even if you don't really know the father that well, you have to give him an opportunity to veto the abortion. Because she'd had several abortions before. She actually, for some reason, thought she'd had some critical number of abortions that meant she could never have a child again. I'm not sure how she came to that conclusion, but it was a different era, you know what I mean? So she had this pregnancy that she wasn't anticipating, and I'm just gonna be upfront with it right now. I don't agree. I don't think it's up to the non-carrying parent whether or not an abortion happens. It's none of your business. I mean, I think if you've been in a long-term committed relationship, it can definitely be hurtful if a partner decides not to carry a pregnancy, you know, that comes up or whatever. But that's definitely something you should have talked about before you got to that point, right? So anyway, now that I've got that little, like, policy note in there, my aunt did not believe in that, and so she asked the father whether or not, she basically, she was like, hey, I'm planning on getting an abortion and I thought you should know, which, why tell him? It doesn't matter. If you're getting it done, you're getting it done. But anyway, he was like, no, I can make it work. I'll be responsible. I'll do, we'll get married. And they did get married, and she does not love him. Like, they are not a good couple. They want such different things out of life. He wants the picket fence and the 2.5 kids. She likes to move every couple years. So their divorce is inevitable. Their son, I think, turned 18 this year. So I'm really just waiting to hear through the grapevine when they split up, because they've really not. I don't want to dox myself more than anything more than them. I don't care about doxing this one person, because in a lot of other ways this woman is a horrible person too. But anyway, apparently part of her grief of not having that particular abortion is because that baby was born at a time when she didn't have the financial stability she wanted before potentially having children, and she had always wanted to have 2 children, and because they ended up like buying a house and doing a few other things, she ended up only having 1, and she's of an age now where she would definitely need a lot of serious interventions to have a second child, and it caused her a lot of grief. And so, the fact that these people had already bought a 4-room house, I wonder if they had intended on having 2 of their own children, and Harry fucked that up for them, which might be another reason that they have resentment. I mean, I think Josephina just put this in there as another indicator that these people had a lot of money. But, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like we're supposed to hate the Dursleys for, and I don't think in any way, I don't think that we should feel bad for, well, no. I don't think we should excuse the Dursleys' abuse of Harry, of putting him under the cupboard, or in the cupboard, under the stairs, whatever you mean. Or that it's okay that they didn't give him his own clothes, or that they let Dudley bully him. But, like, I don't think Josephina really understands how, like, disruptive to whatever plan the Dursleys had for their life, adopting a baby around the same age. I mean, they effectively now had twins. After they weren't planning on having twins, after they didn't have twins for a year, they now suddenly have twins. And that's a different life than the one that they were building, And, like, this should not have been put on them, Like, if it was me and one of my siblings died, I'm gonna be really honest, the rest of my family's a mess, and I'm really glad that, to my knowledge, none of them have kids drifting out there, because they're definitely gonna get caught up in some shit, and I'd be responsible for that kid, and I would do it, you know what I mean? But that's something I've already thought about. It's something that I already somewhat in the back of my mind have room for in my mentally in my life. I'm already like, if I ever found out that one of my siblings had some child or baby that I hadn't been told about, because like the Dursleys, I also don't speak to that part of my family, not for racism reasons though, but because they're involved in like crime, and so I have to be keep myself and my family safe. But I'm also sort of in the back of my mind going like, honestly, I am next of kin for some. I am potentially next of kin for somebody, and there's the possibility that I could be called randomly by DCF and told like, hey, you got a brand new kid coming. You know what I mean? Like, I know that that's a possibility. The Dursleys do not seem to have had that possibility. They said, we disowned that family and that's it. Like, we left that I mean, to be fair, it seems like Lily disowned her first. So, I mean, they basically said they don't have family. That's the life they were living. And so, if that's the case, then they must have been really unprepared. I imagine at least at first they were just giving him Dudley's stuff because, like, I mean, babies go through clothes real fast. Like, at the point we join Harry and Dudley, they have only just begun to be old enough that an outfit can last more than one season. At 11, you might be able to wear a jacket for 2 winters, you know what I mean? So, you know, it seems like they're putting themselves into debt to provide the life for Dudley that they thought they would be able to have. Like, because it's having two children is different from having twins. You know, when you have a younger child, you can rely on like hand-me-downs a lot. Like, for the first 5 years of my oldest child's life, like, it was just like we were lucky enough to get hand-me-downs from other family members, cousins and stuff whose kids were just the right amount of years older. We did a lot of networking through like work and stuff to like pass baby clothes around. Like, when you're poor, you know how to do these things, and we are and were. But the Dursleys have money. And the Dursleys specifically have, like, the kind of money where social services isn't going to help them get a whole new wardrobe for this baby they just adopted. Although social services would help in the case of an adoption, so I don't understand the situation they're in. I mean, I don't understand the UK adoption system that well, but at least in the US, at least at first in the process where you're fostering before the adoption goes through completely, there's assistance with, getting clothes, getting shoes, getting medical stuff taken care of. Once the adoption's finalized, you're on your own. But, and, like, if I was the Dursleys, maybe I wouldn't even finalize the adoption, you know what I mean? It sounds like they didn't. Like, I'd be really curious to find out legally what Harry's relation to them was, how they had custody of him, how they got him into school, things like that. Because it doesn't make sense to me, the arrangement that they appear to have. Like, where he's still somewhat undocumented, but using public services like school, and healthcare to get glasses, if nothing else. So, but anyway, my main point is, I'm not saying that I excuse the Dursleys for anything they've done to him, because, it's never a child's fault that an adult's life is going poorly due to the existence of the child. Like, they didn't ask to be here either, But I do kind of feel for the Dursleys, because, like, suddenly adopting a child you never planned on is a huge, huge, like, life event, and they're just supposed to roll with it and be like, no, we're a happy family, it's all fine. And, like, it isn't fine, you know what I mean? Like, it's not good. I don't know. A lot of this, like, we're supposed to just interpret as, like, because they're inherently awful people. But, like, they didn't seem to have a lot of emotional resilience to begin with. So, how much of this was just breaking a person who was already on the brink? I don't know. I've been too sympathetic to the Dursleys for too many minutes in a row now. But I think it says a lot that Josephina, she can't even write a villain correctly, you know what I mean? Because these are legitimately bad people. But, like, they're bad people, and I feel bad for them, and not in a way where it's like, oh, they were written sympathetically, because they're written very unsympathetically. Like, I'm supposed to read into everything here that they're, like, just not good people. But, like, just everything I know about how to live life as a human being, and how much harder a lot of things have changed since, the 2000s. Like, a lot of things are easier now than they were in the 90s. There was so much, like, stigma and stuff in the 90s that people don't have to deal with now. Like, you can get mental health help, and it's a lot less stigmatized now. It's still stigmatized, it still sucks, but it's something we talk about as a culture. you know? And just like, I can't speak from the UK perspective, of course, but like from the American perspective, this would have been way more devastating to a family in the 90s. Like, it was still weird to be adopted in the 90s, you know what I mean? Even though a lot of kids were. The 90s, there was a big peak in like international adoptions during that time period and stuff. That's part of why it's more blasé now. But it was like scandalous to do an adoption in the 80s, you know? So like how much like stress must the Dursleys have been under? It doesn't excuse any of their abuse, but like the fact that even Josephina doesn't like she can't understand how shitty like doing that to the Dursleys was. You know what I mean? Like it's not written in at all how hard that must have been for them. Like they're just supposed to I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Harry took his one box of everything he owned upstairs. He sat down on the bed and stared around him. Nearly everything in here was broken. The month-old video camera was lying on top of a small working tank Dudley had once driven over the next-door neighbor's dog. In the corner was Dudley's first-ever television set, which he'd put his foot through when his favorite program had been canceled. Those televisions, like the screens, were so thick. And the plastic casing, I mean, in the 80s. Okay, growing up, we didn't have a ton of money, so, you know, what was the saying? Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. That was our lifestyle, and it's kind of still is for me in a lot of ways. So, because like my parents, were the children of depression babies. And so we still have a lot of generationally, I got a lot of the habits. Like I know how to can stuff, you know what I mean? Like both of my grandmothers did not let me reach adulthood without learning like I can sew my own clothes, you know? I'm not going into my, zombie survival skills right now. But the point is, you know, so growing up, we had this TV from the 70s and it was furniture. You know what I mean? It had like a wooden case. The glass on that television is thicker than the glass in my apartment windows currently. You know, like they were sturdy. And then we got a small TV with a VCR for what year was this? Early 90s. The glass is still real thick. And the plastic on the outside of the television was thinner. I probably could have broken it if I wanted to. But the televisions from the 80s, because it's 1991 right now in this book. So if that television's already broken and it's his first television, it came from the 80s. And like, they were hefty. How did Dudley get his foot through the TV? I can't think of a single way he put his foot through the television that didn't end with him in an emergency room. Like the glass, there goes his foot. The plastic, stitches for sure. Might have broken a part of his foot in just the force needed to get it through there, even if he's wearing shoes. She's not a good writer, guys. Like, we're supposed to read that and go, what a brat. And I'm just thinking, like, how the fuck did he get his foot through the TV? Anyway, also, if he's that upset that his first TV show has been canceled, I'm not convinced this boy's neurotypical. And if so, when he's acting out, it's because he's not getting the assistance he needs from his family and community and his school and stuff. So, because what child is that upset that a TV show's canceled? They cry. They don't break the television, you know? So, yeah, she's honestly, like, we're supposed to be upset with him over this. And I'm honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this poor little boy, you know what I mean? That his parents are just, like, teaching him, allowing maladaptive behaviors because they don't know how to teach him. You know, that's sad, not contemptible, you know? It's sad for the whole family unit. And they're like, they're villains for abusing a boy, but like, honestly, the longer I think about it, the more I'm just like, they weren't prepared. And especially because in a lot of ways, like, Harry was a special needs baby, right? Like, he probably accidental magicked all over the place and freaked them out. And like, it doesn't excuse abuse. Like, I feel the need to continue to say it because it kind of sounds like I am. But I just mean, like, she tried to write these people as like bad people. And like, they just sound like broken people, you know? There was a large bird cage which had once held a parrot that Dudley had swapped at school for a real air rifle, which was up on the shelf with the end all bent because Dudley had sat on it. I'd like to know how he brought a parrot to school and no one noticed. I'd also like to know who brought an air rifle to school. Also, I'm not positive it was a real air rifle because I'm a large adult and I don't think I could bend an air rifle by sitting on it. And Dudley was somewhat younger than 11 at some point when he sat on the air rifle. So again, this is, I think we're supposed to be like, ew, this kid is so fat. But I'm just hearing he got duped. Like, that's a fucking shitty gun that he bought. Like, not even bought, he swapped a parrot. How did he get the parrot to school? Because it says swapped at school, not with a kid from school. How did he get the parrot? Was the parrot dead already? Did he kill the parrot? Other shelves were full of books. They were the only things in the room that looked as though they'd never been touched. I mean, what books? Were they books for kids? Honestly, the fact that Dudley doesn't read, again, sounds more like a learning disability than because there's something innately bad about him. Like, does Dudley struggle to read? Am I supposed to hate him for being illiterate? Like, I'm supposed to hate his illiteracy? My boy needs help. Like, I hate the Dursleys, but like, I can't, honestly, as a teacher, I can't hate Dudley. I really can't. Like, he, at this point, is not old enough to be independent of the family system. He is not doing these things because he's a piece of shit kid. You know, if he had good parents who were doing their best and he still ended up being an abusive bully at school who does whatever the fuck he wants, you know, yeah, that's a piece of shit kid, you know, that is. And like, as a teacher, I feel bad saying it, but sometimes you have to realize, like, not everyone's a good person, and bad people start out as bad children. But I mean, the thing is, it's almost, especially below a certain age, you know, you can't really say that until like middle school at the very earliest, and even then you really got to wait until like 21, 22, because sometimes, you know, there's a lot of just mental illnesses and stuff, that traumas, it's a lot. You can't really just point at a kid and be like, there's a villain. You know, that's something that's really restricted to adulthood. But like, if this story was written where Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon were kind and gentle people who were constantly trying to teach this boy some manners, yeah, then I'd be like, fuck that man. Like, fuck that little boy, fuck his asshole ways. But his parents are assholes. He's learning that the way to get by in life is to fuck people up, you know? They're watching him treat his younger cousin like shit, and that's just an acceptable way of being. You know? He's watching the favoritism and he's learning from them what is acceptable behavior and what isn't. But I'm supposed to fault him for not somehow knowing that it was wrong anyway. Like, you know, I've spoken with people who are like, oh, but you know, at school they say this or that, and like, how much attention did you ever pay to school? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you know, school says a lot of shit you don't listen to. You don't take that shit seriously, you know what I mean? You take seriously the things that go on in your home, in your neighborhood, in your life. I mean, you take seriously, the interactions that happen at school, but Dudley's not getting in trouble at school for the things he does to Harry either. Like, he's literally just getting a pass on all of this shit, so why would he not think it was acceptable behavior? He would just think it's acceptable behavior. It's not his fault that he doesn't know this is unacceptable behavior. This is, as far as he's concerned, just the way talking and being is. Being a bully is acceptable in his community when he does it. So I can't hate Dudley. If I remember correctly, he does actually get more sympathetic as he ages, though I might be reading into it. Like, I think there's a certain point where he's like, hey, Harry, like, you're all right or whatever. I'm not going to fuck with you anymore. And I think, if I remember correctly, that says a lot more about him than anything that happened when he was 10. How many of us were really, like, our full selves at 10, Anyway, from downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling at his mother. I don't want him here. I need that room. Make him get out. There's a missing quote on this page, but anyway. And, like, again, we're supposed to hate that, but that's exactly what you would expect in this situation. Like, at this point, this boy has been told his whole life he has 2 bedrooms. And now he basically feels punished. Harry got a letter, and now Dudley has to not have 2 rooms. That feels bad, Even though he shouldn't have had 2 rooms in the first place. Some of us didn't even have 1 room to ourselves, right? So for this boy to have 2 feels ridiculous. But, like, there's some places in the world where, whole families live in 1 room, right? Some places in this world, people are living in huts. People live in refugee camps right now. If you had to live in a refugee camp tomorrow, you sure would feel deprived, Even though for some people, that refugee camp is the best place they've been in weeks. You know what I mean? Like, the relative surroundings of your life tell you whether or not something is shitty. And an 11-year-old boy who grew up in basically the lap of luxury is not gonna understand that he should calm the fuck down. Like, Josephina wants me to feel badly for this kid. And, like, in real life, I would definitely be, like, rolling my eyes, be like, okay, Dudley, yeah, I know. But, like, you gotta help him through this. He does not understand the problem. He doesn't understand that they're thinking they're gonna go to jail for child abuse. And even if they tell him, like, we could go to jail for child abuse, I've said that to some of my younger kids, and they've been like, okay, well, I'll visit you in jail. And I'm like, no, you don't understand the problem. You don't understand how this would fuck up not just me, like, your whole life is going to get turned upside down too if I go to jail. You know what I mean? And kids don't have that thought process. By the way, the thing that I was going to go to jail with, I was explaining to them they can't just skip school all the time because that's child abuse and I go to jail. And they're like, well, I'll visit you when I'm not at school, because, they don't understand, like, the criminal system, basically. Like, I just wanted to be clear, I'm not telling my kids I'll go to jail for, like, punching them in the face or whatever, and they should just put up with it. You know what I mean? It's for reasonable childhood things. Anyway. Harry sighed and stretched out on the bed. By the way, so he had a bed in the cupboard too, right? So what are they going to do with that bed now? Because apparently there was already a bed in this room. They bought 5 beds for a 4-bedroom house? Okay. Yesterday, he'd have given anything to be up here. Today, he'd rather be back in his cupboard with that letter than up here without it. Yeah, life comes at you fast, huh? Next morning at breakfast, everyone was rather quiet. Dudley was in shock. He'd screamed, whacked his father with his smelting stick, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother, and thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof. Hold on, what? So today we learned that Dudley had a tortoise, and that the Dursleys had a greenhouse, and thirdly, that I guess he murdered his tortoise? There's no way the tortoise lived, right? Why did Josephina just casually write in the death of a tortoise? I would have put, like, a trigger warning in for that, but that one hit me just now too, so I apologize, everyone. But But yeah, she just oh, hold on, I'm about to get an alarm. She really just said this boy murdered a tortoise in order to win points with his family? Like, the dysfunction she wrote in order to make him seem shittier. Like, honestly, I'm moving on because I can't spend more words on this. I'm so emotionally tired. There we go. Alarm off. Threw his tortoise to the greenhouse roof, didn't have his room back. Harry was thinking about this time yesterday and wishing bitterly that he'd opened the letter in the hall. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia kept looking at each other darkly. Yeah, because they're waiting for his next letter. I don't know how they knew, but I think they had an inkling that they weren't going to give up so easily. When the mail arrived, Uncle Vernon, who seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry, made Dudley go and get it. Yeah, probably mostly so Harry wouldn't have an opportunity to hide the mail, more than anything. But maybe he was trying to be nice to Harry for for so he doesn't go to jail. Or wizard jail. At this point, they might be afraid of going to wizard jail. They heard him banging things with his smelting stick all the way down the hall. Then he shouted, "There's another one! Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom, 4 Privet Drive." And, like, we're supposed to be kind of, like, they're throwing shade on the Dursleys at this point, right? For giving Harry the smallest bedroom. But, like, smallest by how much? You know, if they live in a mansion and they give him a bedroom the size of a broom closet, that's fine. But, like, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment right now, and one of the bedrooms is smaller than the others. That's just a fact. And some people sleep in the smallest bedroom because somebody has to. It's not a big deal. Like, what am I going to do? Okay, sleep in the living room so you don't have the smallest bedroom. And if the living room becomes whatever, it doesn't, because then what's the smallest bedroom is the smallest room you use for sleeping? Anyway, look, they gave the boy a room. Leave him alone. Leave them alone. Whatever. Like, I'm not a Dursley's defender, but, like, they're really... With a strangled cry, Uncle Vernon leapt from his seat and ran down the hall, Harry right behind him. Uncle Vernon had to wrestle Dudley to the ground to get the letter from him. What's the emergency line in the UK? Like 111, 999? Whatever it is, call it, please. Thank you. Why is he tackling his son to the ground? Try words. Which was made difficult by the fact that Harry had grabbed Uncle Vernon around the neck from behind. Hello, police? This family right here. That's them, officer. After a minute of confused fighting in which everyone got hit a lot by the smelting stick, good for Dudley, Uncle Vernon straightened up, gasping for breath, with Harry's letter clutched in his hand. So, I guess he's in better shape than we were led to believe. Go to your cupboard. I mean, your bedroom, he wheezed at Harry. Dudley, go. Just go. I mean, to fight off 2 11-year-old boys is certainly a feat. Let me put it that way. It is certainly a feat. Harry walked round and round his new room. So see, he has enough room to walk around. There's a bed in there, and he has floor space. Better than my bedroom, not gonna lie. Someone knew he had moved out of the cupboard, and they seemed to know he hadn't received his first letter. Surely that meant they'd try again, and this time he'd make sure they didn't fail. He had a plan. Yeah, it's called getting up early. Honestly, that's what it is. Go to the bathroom around mail time, but don't go to the bathroom. Wait for the mail. The repaired alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off quickly and dressed silently. He mustn't wake the Dursleys. Do they have the thickest walls in the universe? They're awake now. Your alarm went off. Harry turned it off. No, that's it. He stole downstairs without turning on any of the lights. He was going to wait for the postman on the corner of Privet Drive and get the letters for number 4 first. Unless the UK is remarkably different from the United States, that will not work. You can't, unless the mailman knows you personally, and like my mail carrier has known me personally sometimes, and I've been able to do that kind of a thing, walk out and be like, hey, can I just take it from here, thanks. Aside from that, you can't just go to the mail carrier on the street and be like, hello, I actually live at this address, so if you could please give me the mail, that would be great. They're not going to give it to you. They're going to deliver it where it belongs. If you live in that house, you'll get it when I get there, you know? Anyway, his heart hammered as he crept across the dark hall towards the front door. Ah! Harry leapt into the air. He'd trodden on something big and squashy on the doormat. Something alive. That's squashy, remember? Because he's fat. Lights clicked on upstairs, and to his horror, Harry realized that the big squashy something had been his uncle's face. Uncle Vernon had been lying at the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure that Harry didn't do exactly what he'd been trying to do. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy shit. Okay. Moving on. He shouted at Harry for about half an hour and then told him to go and make a cup of tea. Harry shuffled miserably off into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the mail had arrived, right into Uncle Vernon's lap. Harry could see 3 letters addressed in green ink. At this point, wizards sure regret not inventing the Xerox, huh? He began, but Uncle Vernon was tearing the letters into pieces right before his eyes. This is where we learn that apparently Uncle Vernon has very strong hands, because that's a feat with a regular envelope, going through all those layers of paper, but this is thick parchment, apparently. So, like, honestly, good for him. Like, she talks a lot about how he is so out of shape and fat and eats donuts, but apparently he's been keeping up on Arms Day, at least. That grip strength is nothing to joke about. Uncle Vernon didn't go to work that day. I mean, mental health days are important. It sounds like he's never taken one before in his life, so good for him. He stayed at home and nailed up the mail slot. I mean, I would just like to say that I think instead of nailing up the mail slot, he'd probably have better results if he went to the post office and did one of those change of address. Or how about, what if he put, like, return to sender not at address at one of those letters and returned it? I know the postmaster didn't deliver it, but at this point, they don't know that, as far as I'm understanding it. So, why wouldn't you take this up with the post office and be like, who the fuck is this? Just saying. See, he explained to Aunt Petunia through a mouthful of nails, if they can't deliver them, they'll just give up. Untrue, they'll just leave it on your step. But anyway. I'm not sure that'll work, Vernon. Oh, these people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like you and me, said Uncle Vernon, trying to knock in a nail with the piece of fruitcake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. And, you know, she's calling Vernon crazy, and she's not wrong. Josephina is not wrong here. This is like, I think, one of the first few times she has written something and I went, no, that was good. That makes sense. She wrote exactly what she meant in this case. On Friday, no less than 12 letters arrived for Harry. As they couldn't go through the mail slot, they had been pushed under the door, slotted through the sides, and a few even forced through the small window in the downstairs bathroom. Now, I think they might look into, like, winterizing their home, because that sounds like they got a lot of drafty areas in their home, that the front door and a window in the bathroom were open enough that you could fit a fairly thick letter through there. That seems like an issue. I have a window in my kitchen that also has a gap that size in it, and let me tell you, in all seasons, that is the most miserable part of the house. In winter, it is the coldest part of the house. Even with the oven going, it's still a little bit chilly in there. And then in the summer, um, I don't even bother trying to like a fan, because there's no air conditioning in the kitchen, which makes sense. That would just be a waste of money, if I'm being honest. Both because of that window and also because of the stove. But I don't even put the living room air conditioner on unless I'm going to be sitting right there because the kitchen is adjacent to the living room and all that air conditioning just goes right out the kitchen window. So all I'm saying is I feel like the Dursleys are spending way more on heating and cooling their house, if they're even cooling it. I don't think it gets that hot in the UK. Like it gets muggy here in New York City, you know what I mean? So like sometimes I have the windows open and I'm still sweating. I'm tempted I might turn on the air conditioner a little bit. But in the UK, I'm not sure it gets that hot. So anyway, my point is they're spending more on their home expenses than they need to be. They should get that checked. Uncle Vernon stayed at home again. After burning all the letters, he got out a hammer and nail and boarded up the cracks around the front and back doors so no one could get out. He hummed Tiptoe Through the Tulips as he worked and jumped at small noises. I could see why he's upset. I'd be upset if someone knew that much about all the drafty areas of my house. I don't know that boarding it up would work. It probably would have been a lot faster and easier to just get one of those like caulk guns, and just put I guess it's called caulk. I don't know what that is. It's CAULK. That's how I've heard that pronounced. Yeah, you just seal up the bottoms of things. I would do that here at my apartment, but I don't. My landlord has not fixed 4 other things in this apartment that I've complained about. I'm paying for a dishwasher that doesn't run, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not fixing the drafts for free in here, you know what I'm saying? I just wear a sweater. But I'm just saying, if he wants to fix those things on a home he presumably owns, I'm not sure a wooden board with a nail is really the fix for a gappy window. I mean, if you wanted to go the whole way, if it doesn't shut that much, it's probably, depending on how old the window is, just time to replace it. So he could have done that too. But of course, that's a longer term fix. Anyway, so I don't even own a home and I know more about repairing it than Josephina. On Saturday, things began to get out of hand. 24 letters to Harry found their way into the house. I don't know how he knows that for sure, right? Like, I guess we're just supposed to know that because of, like, the authorial will. But if he's not allowed to have any of them, how does he know? Maybe Vernon complained, I don't know. They found their way into the house, rolled up and hidden inside of each of the 24 eggs that their very confused mailman had handed Aunt Petunia through the living room window. I guess because everyone's boarded up inside the house now. I also feel like this is a call to protective services, right? But yeah, so the milkman, first of all, the milkman is delivering eggs. Do they do that in the UK? I was under the impression you buy that at like Boots or whatever. Wait, isn't Boots like a CVS? Well, it doesn't matter. You go to the store. But also, these were supposed to be fairly thick letters. Are they buying goose eggs? How did they fit in the eggs? While Uncle Vernon made furious telephone calls to the post office and the dairy, trying to find someone to complain to, Aunt Petunia shredded the letters in her food processor. Not my first choice for shredding letters, but I guess if they came from eggs, are they food now? Were they wet? I wonder if they were wet. Odd. Who on earth wants to talk to you this badly? Dudley asked Harry in amazement. Which, again, that seems like a very normal sibling interaction. Like, she accidentally wrote, like, just normal siblings. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat down at the breakfast table, looking tired and ill, but happy. No post on Sundays, he reminded them cheerfully as he spread marmalade on his newspapers. Can someone call him a doctor? Like Petunia, stop enabling. No damn letters today. Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney. Wait, there's a chimney in their kitchen? Wait, there's a fireplace in their kitchen? Hold on. I'm now reimagining their kitchen. I imagine them having like a gas stove because it's pretty typical, right? Um, where the fuck is the fireplace? All right. Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney as he spoke and caught him sharply on the back of the head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came pelting out of the fireplace like bullets. The Dursleys ducked, but Harry leapt out in the air trying to catch one. Out! Out! I just can't imagine a fireplace in the kitchen? What is this, the 1800s? Uncle Vernon seized Harry around the waist and threw him into the hall. When Aunt Petunia and Dudley had run out with their hands over their faces, Uncle Vernon slammed the door shut. They could hear the letters still streaming into the room, bouncing off the walls and floors. Those are some hefty letters. That does it, said Uncle Vernon, trying to speak calmly, but pulling great tufts out of his mustache at the same time. I want you all back here in 5 minutes, ready to leave. We're going away. Just pack some clothes. No arguments. This is the point where I call for a wellness check on my husband. I mean, I wouldn't have a husband, but if I did, honey, we're not leaving. What if we just gave Harry the fucking letter? You know? Like, they want him to go to school. You know, it's not like they're recruiting him for, like, I don't know, a foreign military or some shit. They said he can go to a school for free. At least write back and be like, no, thank you. Because, like, what are they gonna do? Kidnap him? Also, for a kid you don't seem to want, goodbye. Go live with the wizards now. Our 10 years of misery are finally coming to a close. You know? Like, it sends a really weird mixed message about how they felt about Harry. Like, did they want to get rid of him? Are they tired of him? Are they scared of him? Why are they like, the wizards aren't gonna spirit away our adopted son, you know? Like, do they care about him or what? You know what I mean? Like, if my mom had received a letter saying that I could go to a boarding school for free and never be around unless she wanted me there again, you know how quick she would have sent me to that boarding school? She would have been like, girl, bye. More drugs for money for, or more drugs for money, more money for drugs for me. Goodbye. Don't have to feed you or anything? Yeah, get out. You know? So, like, why don't they just be like, good, let the wizards take him and that's the end of our problems? Let the wizards abduct your kid. He looked so dangerous, with half his mustache missing, which that must have hurt a lot to pull out, that no one dared argue. 10 minutes later, they had wrenched their way through the boarded up doors and were in the car, speeding towards the highway. Dudley was sniffling in the back seat. His father had hit him around the head for holding them up while he tried to pack his television, VCR, and computer in his sports bag. I mean, how would any one of those things fit in a sports bag? Let's start there. Maybe the VCR. I remember a VCR might have been able to fit into a sports bag. Like, if it was a newer one from 1991, the 80s ones were like a whole table practically. Um, but the TV and the what was it? Computer? The computer was also like a big piece of furniture. Like, I don't. Also, that doesn't mean his dad can just like punch him in the head. Like, what the fuck? I'm just feeling bad for his family right now. Also, I'm hearing some suspicious sounds in the other room. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. They were getting themselves popsicles, and you know what? That's a really good idea, actually. It is so fucking hot. So, I also got me a popsicle. They drove and they drove. Even Aunt Petunia didn't dare ask where they were going. Every now and then, Uncle Vernon would make a sharp turn and drive in the opposite direction for a while. Shake 'em off, he would mutter whenever he did this. So he got to that trend real early. Never let 'em guess your next move, Vernon. They didn't stop to eat or drink all day. By nightfall, Dudley was howling. He'd never had such a bad day in his life. He was hungry, he'd missed 5 television programs he'd wanted to see, and he'd never gone so long without blowing up an alien on his computer. So, like, did Dudley also have math blasters? Because that was one of the better edutainment games. And if so, good for him for working on that math problem he was having before where he couldn't add. Sorry, that my microphone is picking up on my mouth sounds. Let me push that a little further back. Thank you. Nobody needs to hear all that. Microphone, calm down. But yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's an objectively horrible day. When your father has a break from reality, drives on the highway for hours with no stops for food or bathrooms, you have no idea where you're going, no idea where it'll end. And you're fucking scared and bored. It's a terrible day. I don't know why they're saying Dudley had never had such a terrible day, but Junior or Harry either. If Harry is not understanding the danger he's in, that doesn't mean he isn't. Uncle Vernon stopped at last, outside of a gloomy-looking hotel on the outskirts of a big city. Oh my god. What city? If it's a big city, it should be nameable. I'm guessing London, or they might have driven far enough to get up to, like, oh my god, what is the name of that one in Scotland? Glasgow or something? If they did go up to Scotland, they just got him further to wizard school. So, props to Uncle Vernon for not understanding the assignment. But I guess since he doesn't know where it was, it couldn't be helped. Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and damp, musty sheets. He had to pick the sketchiest hotel? Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting on the windowsill, staring down at the lights of passing cars and wondering. Wondering what? They ate stale cornflakes and cold tinned tomatoes on toast for breakfast the next day. The breakfast of losers. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to their table. "Excuse me, but is one of you Mr. H. Potter? Only I got about 100 of these at the front desk." She held up a letter so they could read the green ink address. Mr. H. Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel in Cokeworth. So let's see, where is Cokeworth, if that exists? If not, props, Cokeworth, UK. Okay. Props for choosing a really evocative name. All right. It's made up. And apparently where Lily and Petunia grew up. And apparently where Snape lives with his family. Which, this wiki just taught me that Snape had a family. Huh. Apparently, Snape lived in Cokeworth until 1998, so they're visiting the town Snape is probably in right now. So, cool. It is located near a dirty river, the bank of which is strewn with litter. There is a disused mill with a tall chimney in this town. So, it has several streets of identical brick terraced houses. So that gives you the vibe. Hold on, let me scroll down. Supposed to suggest an industrial town, evoking associations of hard work and grime. Although it is never made explicit in the books, hold on. Cokeworth is where what? Hello? Sorry, the page is reloading. Yeah, it's the place where Petunia, Lily, and Severus all grew up. Perhaps Uncle Vernon has a vague idea that Cokeworth is so distinctly unmagical the letters will not follow them there. But, like, yeah, after all, that is where they grew up, so why the fuck did he think that? So it's a fictional town. I can't really get... You know what? While we're here, let's look at Little Whinging. How far away did they go? How much of this was backtracking and how much was that it's really far away? Let's see. Yep. August 1995. Supposedly it's serviced by a commuter rail, which is amazing for a fictional place. Oh, I see. So based on trains that Harry is, known to have taken in the books, we can determine that Little Whinging is in the north of Surrey, between Surbiton Station and Hampton Court, it looks like, or Guildford. The paragraph is vague. I don't know enough about the area to know what that means, but if you do, good. So it's also possible that it's now part of incorporated Greater London. So it sounds like a pretty posh area. The place it was filmed is Martin's Heron in Berkshire, which has the sound of a rich area. Let me see. 25 miles west of London. But is it rich? It doesn't say, really. Oh, apparently there's a station built by Tesco. Like, train station, as a condition of putting the Tesco there. That's the store I should have said they were at, but anyway. Sounds rich because it has like restricted hours for the grocery stores and stuff. Excuse you. Really hard to tell based on the exactly 3 photos given. But I'm gonna assume it's like middle class based on what I'm looking at here. So, yeah. But how far from there to the... Okay. Let's see. Surrey to... Not London, but... let's say England Midlands. Approximately how many miles did they drive in this day? How crazy was Vernon? Let me find like a random town in the Midlands to use as a marker. Birmingham was at the top of this list, so we're gonna go with Birmingham. That's the new Cokesworth. Directions, no. Mileage, Surrey to Birmingham. There we go. Give me a map. Here's a map. Okay, so driving, it should take you about 2 hours. So they started at breakfast, and they stopped. Doesn't say when. So maybe they drove for 2 hours? I don't understand why they would drive for 2 hours. I mean, probably more if he kept turning around. Like, what did he think 2 hours was gonna do? Then again, never mind. If I drove, okay, let's see. If I drove right now from my house, I rented a car and I drove for 2 hours in any direction, I guess that would seem pretty far to me. Like, I would be in... Unless I headed directly north, like straight north. Well, not, I can't go straight north because there's like bodies of water in the way. But if I got myself aligned with the rest of the continent and then headed straight north, I might be able to get to be near Vermont in 2 hours. Definitely in Pennsylvania if I go west. East is bust. I'm gonna hit ocean before 2 hours is over. And south, I might make it through New Jersey at least. Depends on traffic. So yeah, I guess it doesn't look like that much on this map, right? But yeah, that's probably pretty far. I guess I understand why he felt that was a good place to stop. I don't know why he stopped in his wife's hometown, but maybe he just felt like it had good vibes because he vaguely remembered the name. He's not sane right now. So Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle Vernon knocked his hand out of the way. The woman stared. Yeah, you can't just casually abuse your children in front of strangers, sir. I'll take them, said Uncle Vernon, standing up quickly and following her to the dining room. This woman definitely wondered if she watched a kidnapping happen, right? Pretty sure. Wouldn't it be better just to go home, dear? Aunt Petunia suggested timidly, hours later. But Uncle Vernon didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove them into the middle of a forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, got back in the car, and off they went again. At that point, I would definitely be thinking he was looking for a grave, right? He's trying to murder everyone. Maybe I've just watched too much, like, true crime shit Or maybe it's because I just grew up with too many, like, gang-affiliated individuals. But if someone drove me into the middle of the woods after going several hours from home and started looking around, that's when I would, start running. He's about to dig a grave for you. The same thing happened in the middle of a plowed field, again, gravesite. Halfway across a suspension bridge, he about to throw you guys over. And at the top of a multi-level parking garage. I'm not positive what Josephina thought she was writing, but she's writing a man contemplating murder. Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he? Dudley asked Aunt Petunia dully late that afternoon. I don't know why she said dully, because that's the kind of thing you would be very invested in the answer to. Uncle Vernon had parked at the coast and locked them all inside the car and disappeared. It started to rain. Great drops beat on the roof of the car. Dudley sniffled. It's Monday, he told his mother. The great Humberto's on tonight. I want to stay somewhere with a television. Monday. That reminded Harry of something. If it was Monday, and you could usually count on Dudley to know the days of the week. She says, as if it's weird for an 11-year-old boy to have an internal clock that knows what day of the week it is. If it's Monday, a bitch knows it's Monday. Anyway, because of television. Because of television. That's the only way an 11-year-old dumbass knows what day of the week it is. Good job, Josephina. Then tomorrow, Tuesday, was Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthdays were never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys had given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. What was the point of the coat hanger? Like, the abortion we wish you had been? Still, you weren't 11 every day. No, but you are for 365 to 66 days, approximately. Uncle Vernon was back, and he was smiling. He was also carrying a long, thin package and didn't answer Aunt Petunia when she asked what he'd bought. I mean, this is the time when you stop, you take the keys, you leave the vehicle, you run away when he goes and locks you in the car. You exit the vehicle and run for safety. My man's bought a gun and is taking you into the ocean. Like, she needs to stand up before all of her kids, her and her kids, get fucking murdered by her psychotic husband. But anyway. Found the perfect place, he said. Come on, everyone out. It was very cold outside the car. It's July 30 and very cold outside the car, so I have to assume they went further north? I mean, it gets cold in a storm, right? But he said very cold. So, like, they're at least up around Scotland by this point, right? Must be. Like, they're heading towards the North Sea? I don't know. Like, understanding where these people are in space it's not written well. I have no idea where they are. And I guess that's supposed to be that way, because Harry doesn't know where they are either, but damn. Uncle Vernon was pointing at what looked like a large rock way out at sea. Perched on top of the rock was the most miserable little shack you could imagine. One thing was certain. There was no television there. That's, not a given. There's television in a lot of places you wouldn't expect it, especially if they have satellite, so... Storm forecast for tonight, said Uncle Vernon gleefully, clapping his hands together. And this gentleman's kindly agreed to lend us his boat. That man, who was like, sure, you can use the boat, was like, if you want to die, go ahead and die. That's all that man had to say, like, yep, go ahead and die. A toothless old man came ambling up to them, pointing, with a rather wicked grin, at an old rowboat bobbing in the iron-gray water below them. He definitely thinks Uncle Vernon is going to murder his family, and he's just excited to be on this true crime episode. I've already got us some rations, said Uncle Vernon, so all aboard. It was freezing in the boat. Icy sea spray. I mean, because they're all dressed for summer, too. When they left, it was the middle of July, the end of July, probably hot as fuck around London. And now they're in the North Sea getting stormed on. Vernon really, really went off the deep end. And Petunia let him. Icy sea spray and rain crept down their necks, and a chilly wind whipped their faces. I mean, he could accidentally murder them here, right? He could not even try and just accidentally dump them into the sea. Like, the carelessness on display here today. After what seemed like hours, they reached the rock, where Uncle Vernon, slipping and sliding, led the way to the broken-down house. The inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed, which I bet so. The wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls, and the fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. Uncle Vernon's rations turned out to be a bag of chips each and 4 bananas. I'm just saying, my man's crazy. He tried to start a fire, but the empty chip bags just smoked and shriveled up. Yeah, because that's not kindling. Could do with some of those letters now, huh? He said cheerfully. He was in a very good mood. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them out in a storm to deliver mail. I mean, he's very unhealthily obsessed with not receiving the letters. The answer here was clearly just keep throwing them away, right? Like, just throw them away. Or maybe file a police report and be like, who is pranking me with all these letters? The answer was never consider murdering your family. But, we never thought about that one. That wasn't an option as far as we could tell. So, honestly a little concerned about all of the Dursleys, if I'm being honest. But yeah. Here we go. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them out here in a storm to deliver mail. Harry privately agreed, though the thought didn't cheer him up at all. Yeah, because he's sitting here being like, oh god, this is where I die. That's what I would have thought anyway at that age. But maybe I'm a weird child for thinking my parents might murder me, but I mean, he and I seem to have had a very similar upbringing, so I'm not sure why he didn't contemplate that thought. When you have neglectful parents, you realize real early on that the person charged with taking care of you in life doesn't care if you live. You, as a child, immediately begin caring way more about your own life than the average child, let me tell you. As night fell, the promised storm blew up around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and a fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia found a few moldy blankets in the second room, and made up a bed for Dudley on the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon went to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could and curl up under the thinnest, most ragged blanket. I mean, props to Harry for not just being like, whatever, let the storm take me, because I would have at least thought it as a child. If that had been the situation that I was in, I would have been like, this is a sign from God. I'm supposed to go out and die in this storm. The storm raged more and more ferociously as the night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. I mean, there's a hurricane out. I don't blame him. He shivered and turned over, trying to get comfortable, his stomach rumbling with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned by the low rolls of thunder that started near midnight. So it was storming before without thunder? I mean, I guess. Is it a storm if there's no thunder? I thought that was just like rain. I guess it could be a windstorm? In my experience, windstorms also typically have thunder, but I don't know enough about England's weather to really nitpick this. It's just weird to me that the storm started at like, I guess 9, 10 o'clock, right? If that's when the sun would be going down in July, right? I don't know, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock in July where I am, and if they're even further north, right? Whatever. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat wrist, not just his wrist, guys, his fat wrist, just in case we forgot, in case you forgot. Also, I thought it was a gold watch, so is it a gold digital watch? Is that a thing? All the digital watches I ever, even now, I was going to say in the 90s, but even now, they tend to have, like, plastic, what's the word? Wristbands. They tended to have plastic wristbands. So unless maybe it's just like that glow in the dark, like that luminous paint. Maybe that's what it is. That would make more sense. I figured it out. I got it. I figured it out. Okay. Looking at the clock, Harry was told he'd be 11 in 10 minutes' time. He lay and watched his birthday tick nearer, wondering if the Dursleys would remember at all, wondering where the letter writer was now. I'd be wondering some very similar things, to be honest. It's good questions. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, though maybe he would be warmer if it did. Definitely that kind of thoughts I was having at that age. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Privet Drive would be so full of letters when they got back that he'd be able to steal one somehow. That's very naive of him. I don't think he realizes this is their life from now on, if this doesn't resolve. They end up going back to Privet Drive because Vernon, Harry was abducted, basically. And that was probably the only thing that kept Harry alive, because they were about to die on that rock in the sea. So props to Hagrid for saving that boy's life, because the Dursleys were about to murder their whole family just so Harry couldn't get a letter. 3 minutes to go. Was that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? And 2 minutes to go. What was that funny crunching noise? Was the rock crumbling into the sea? I would have assumed a walrus or some shit if I heard something moving across the rocks. Or, because it's a spooky-ass place in the sea, some kind of sea monster. But I guess the rock crumbling into the sea would also be a terrifying thought to have at nearly midnight, so that's fine. Was 1 minute to go, and he'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he'd wake Dudley up just to annoy him. A very brotherly thing to do. 3, 2, 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered, and Harry sat bolt upright, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. Boom is a weird sound effect for knocking to come in. But okay. And that's the end of the chapter. So I've been going, it'll be 3 hours soon. So that's fine. I just wanted to get like one chapter done. Chapter 3 done, because I've done like 4 of these videos. And I've done 2 chapters, and again, like I said, I don't want to be 70 reviewing this. So, what we've learned today is that Uncle Vernon had very, very precarious mental health to begin with, and all it took was a letter to set this man off. He has had a break with reality. He is not prepared to deal with the reality of the boy living in his house. If we're being honest, this is a very queer story here. Harry, the queer brown boy, is the reading we're going with here, because how she didn't see the parallel is beyond me. Honestly, Harry the trans kid is even better, because this is Harry being Harry has shown Uncle Vernon he is not a cisgender boy. And I don't know what best life Harry's going to live in the future. I don't know if he's going to change his name or his pronouns, but whatever it is, Uncle Vernon absolutely cannot handle it. And that's Josephina not being able to handle it. She can't handle weird shit either. She wrote a man contemplating murder. He literally looked for 5 places to bury Harry, if not the rest of his family, to avoid dealing with the reality of this boy. And I think all of us who grew up with unaccepting parents who, whether it was for religious reasons or just because they're abusive, did not accept who you were as a person, whether that person is trans or gay or just not the same religion as your parents, or maybe they're conservative and you're not conservative, whatever that was. I think we can all relate to that moment where our parent flips their shit and considers murdering you. And I think it says a lot that Josefina is really good at writing a man contemplating murder because he can't accept the abnormality of his, I mean, let's be real at this point, son, his adopted son, but nephew, whatever. But she's really bad at writing the internal experiences of an abused child. As someone who supposedly experienced abuse, I find her ability to identify with the abuser really, really interesting, because I don't necessarily think that it means she wasn't abused, that she doesn't seem to really understand the mindset of an abused person. Like, she could just not understand herself very well. You know, a lot of people don't have good insight, and maybe Josefina is one of them. You know, it's very possible. But also, she really is comfortable writing about the mental states of people who do abuse, and not just in a clinical, like, he was mad or whatever way. Like, she is really writing realistic depictions of abuse from the perspective of the abuser, you know what I mean? Like, she has Uncle Vernon's, like, self-justifications and stuff down, you know? And no one in the rest of the experience is acting as alarmed as they would be in real life. And I just find that little detail really interesting. Because I feel like she really identifies with, if not Uncle Vernon specifically, you know, people like him. Because it's weird that she says that Dudley asked dully if his father was crazy. You know, he isn't particularly invested in the answer. Meanwhile, he would be very invested in that answer after they've already looked at several grave sites. Or the fact that Dudley is primarily concerned with missing television shows. If he was a much younger child, 4, 5, 6 maybe, he might be like, when are we going home to watch TV? At 11, he can understand that his father is preparing a murder. You know what I mean? Petunia, all three of them, everyone who isn't Dudley, should be much more concerned. But they're not. They're just, like, mildly inconvenienced. And I just feel like that says a lot more about who Josefina is as a person than anything else. That she couldn't even add on. Like, Harry is just kind of bummed out that he's having a bad birthday. He's not worried that they're gonna die in this shack. And I think anyone who'd been through a lot of abuse would definitely be concerned about that. Like, they've left him in the cupboard with no food for extended periods of time, right? And the only food Uncle Vernon bought has already been eaten. So, what's the plan for tomorrow? You know, there isn't one. That should be causing a lot more alarm. It should be causing a lot more discord between Petunia and Vernon, and it isn't, you know? So, ultimately, I think, you know, I don't want to say, I'm not going to be one of those, you know, no true Scotsmans who was, you weren't abused type of situations. I'm just saying, I think that if Joanna or Josefina, whatever her name is, really was abused, she took the wrong lessons from it and just learned how to be a better abuser and continue to identify with the abusers. And that's not exemplified anywhere more than in this chapter, where an abusive man loses his fucking mind. Just his goddamn mind is gone at this point. And she just doesn't think that's alarming. She does not write it like this is alarming. Like, it's supposed to be a little bit comical, and it's not. It's terrifying. Um, if you know a family member who starts going off like this on their family, it's a terrifying thing. It's a dangerous time. Like, it's not just kind of funny that he nailed up their front door so no one could go in and out. Like, what if there was a fire, for fuck's sake? Um so yeah, that's sort of my thesis for chapter 3, is that once again, but in a different way somehow, Josephine has showed us that she identifies with abusers to the point that she thinks that it's like a comedic moment when an abuser looks for a location to hide your dead body. But anyway, when can I go back to watching TV? Am I right, guys? So, yeah, that's where we're at. I'm going to sign out. Tomorrow I think is Roblox. I have a few good games lined up for if not, that's Thursday, and I'll be doing let me just look at my schedule real quick. I'm pretty sure that I'm doing Roblox, but let me not preview it if I'm wrong. Let's make sure. Why did I open the wrong link? Hello? What is my deal? One moment, as I have technical difficulties because I can't click. And my slow-ass computer tries its best to help me. It's not the computer's fault. Okay. Any second now. I'm gonna put the, hold on. There we go. Now you at least have something to look at. Wow, beautiful colors. Amazing. But anyway, assuming it's Roblox, I have some games lined up. I have a survival game. There's like a maze. There's also a game I've been looking at for a while. I'm still on the fence about whether I want to show this or not. It's a Find the Everything game, and I would love to show this game with me having found all of the everythings. But the problem with that is that they keep releasing updates, and then I have to go find all the stuff again, And there's 2 from the first update that I still haven't been able to get. I know where they are, I just don't have the skills to get them yet. So, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I kind of want to just do it tomorrow because, God forbid, they release a 4th fucking update, Like, props to the devs for having so much content, but, I might... I don't know. I might do that tomorrow. It's a super fun game. I can prestige and find them all over again. That was going to be my original goal, and I was just going to show you, like, look at all these fucking things I found. But it's a really fun game, and I might do it tomorrow. I'll hold that one back in case I decide not to. My schedule is just not loading. Like, my computer can't handle it. But yeah, if not, then on Wednesday, I think I'm going to keep doing Cookie Run on Wednesdays unless I get feedback from you guys that you want to see me do something else. Wallsville just wasn't working. Like, it's hard to see. It's kind of boring. There's a lot of waiting periods. So I'll be doing Cookie Run, and then unless Among Us starts picking up again, I still technically want to do Among Us on Thursdays, but the servers have been really empty, just totally dead, for the last few tries that I've gone on there. So you're getting just really, bad games of like 5 players, 6 players. So I'm looking for something else to do on Thursdays instead. I'd love to do Stardew Valley, but like it seems like my computer just can't handle that right now. But definitely let me know if you're watching this in YouTube in the comments down below if you have any suggestions. And if you're on Twitch, send me a whisper or, comment in my next stream chat what you want me to do on Thursdays. I'm looking for something else to play on Thursdays. Because just Roblox and Cookie Run, it gets repetitive. And, the Among Us servers might pick up, now that summer's coming up, there might be more kids out of school. But then again, if I'm playing with kids, it's probably not going to be a great game either. So yeah, if you have any suggestions for Thursday games, I'm open, is all I'm saying. Especially if it's something you want me to start for the first time and we can walk through it together. I love doing that shit. So until then, I'll see you guys. Hopefully nothing has to update tomorrow and I'll be back on at 11. Peace out. Have a good night.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit.